Good evening and welcome to the March 13th, 2025 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. We will get right into the agenda. I'll first entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there are any updates or anything.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all's in favor? Thank you. One thing I think we'll get a report from our student representatives and do our own individual comment, but then before we get to public comment, I'd like to do the budget presentation because I think there's some things in there that might be informative going forward. So does that work for everyone? Yeah. Okay. So our student representatives are here.
Spring sports start next Monday the 17th. The senior showcase is next Wednesday the 19th. Carly Freelick is bringing in a Holocaust survivor to talk to the school. MCAS is March 25th and 26th for the 10th graders for English. Underclassmen are going to pick their classes at the end of next week. Semi-formal is March 21st.
2 weeks ago we had DECA States and we had some qualifiers for nationals. The qualifiers are Sonika Javali, Josh Sang, Vishal Ramanathan, Jacob Lewendy, and Gavin McEachern. We also have had a lot of discussion about the schedule at school and we have some comments on it. We have an Instagram account, the Holliston Student Advisory Council, and that account has 234 followers. We put a poll on there asking for feedback. 168 people responded to this poll, volunteer base. We had 10 people respond that they liked this new schedule, and we had 158 people say they did not want this new schedule happening at this moment. As you know, underclassmen are supposed to pick classes next week, and it's kind of hard for them to pick what classes they want without knowing what schedule they will have next week. And they want to be as prepared as possible for the future. And I know a couple people that it's hard for them, like their after-school commitments, they rely on school. Commitments go after homework, so there's also a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And we also had some comments on the Instagram poll.
So sort of like Ramya said, a lot of the responses were that it's going to stress them about their jobs after school because they have a lot of that. All of the new classes, especially with multiple APs, it's going to be confusing. Like, even though there are some, I know Mr. List is doing like some like information like meetings, but I think a lot of people are still really confused about that. And overall, it just was like a very negative response on the students' end.
Also, about the start times, the form that was sent out included 3 times. That was 7:50, 8, and 8:10. But the time that was went with was 8:15, so there's a little bit of confusion on that. That's all we have.
As far as the start times go, obviously we had a lot of discussion around that, and things moved a little bit from some of those options. But I think we'll hear more from some people about the AB schedule and understand that there are definitely some concerns, and we want to hear about them and see if there are ways that we can either work with Dr. Kluska and Mr. List to make some adjustments within that schedule to address some of those concerns, or just try to make things a little bit easier.
I appreciate everything you're trying to do. I understand that this is probably a lot of stress on everyone.
It's what we're paid for.
Yeah.
There's no perfect schedule.
But thank you. Is that
Yeah.
Okay? Great. We'll do school committee individual comment now. Frank. Okay.
Nothing for me.
Joe.
Nothing.
Sarah.
I'm just thinking that in light of some of the comments they were making, maybe it would be worth it for us to kind of figure out whether we can have a public forum so that we can actually get some of those questions addressed. If it's possible to do that before the students have to put their schedules together.
Before they have to put their schedules together?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would, if it's possible, I don't know if it is possible, but.
Well, I know Mr. Liston's been having a lot of forums.
In addition to Mr. List.
Well, I don't think that we've had a forum like in the evening for folks who may not be able to come to something during the day, so parents can
Well,
understand
Mr.
it.
List, I went to his presentation on Monday evening, and I know he's doing another one on the 19th. Is that, you want something in addition to that?
I mean, maybe.
I thought it was pretty helpful, but
I think Mr. List and the administration would have better, like, the questions now are come up is like, what does it mean by schedule? And I don't know if any of us would be in a position to answer that, right? So he would need to guide that with his team.
By what date a class is chosen?
Do you have they're meeting with their counselors or they have been?
Sometime next week.
End of next week.
Yeah.
And I think my understanding is the classes are the same, whether it's the current schedule or the different schedule, but I still know that people have questions about what it's going to look like. But I hope it doesn't impede the ability to at least pick what you want, because it should come out the same as far as the classes you want should be the same either way. It just laid out differently, if that makes sense.
I think an email went out today that says that counselors will join students in classes during the week of March 24th to go over course selection. Course selection opens Friday, March 21st and closes Friday, April 4th. Does that answer your question? Friday, April 4th. Okay. And you had referenced the survey. I've seen a copy, but now I'm worried I've only seen a partial copy. So do you have access to the survey with comments as well?
We have a picture of.
we have pictures, but we
comments
can
and
get
response.
we can get access to
Okay.
all of them.
Is that something you could provide so we
Yeah.
have some of that information?
Do you want us to?
Not right now.
Okay.
Not,
Yeah.
not at the
Next
moment,
week.
but within the next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any comments?
No.
And I don't either. So we'll move to the budget presentation. I promise it won't be too long. We still have some work to do before the plan is to vote next week, so we kind of have a bottom line number that we've voted earlier today in budget. Just a second slide. Okay. Maybe now I need my PowerPoint.
Can you just look at the folder, it's not loaded? Slide 2 and 3.
I'll put the PDF in there.
Okay,
Bring that up.
let me just stop sharing. Is it in the folder?
Same name, just a PDF.
PDF opens.
Okay. There we go.
Is this just put in? Because I have
Yes, because we just voted it.
We met in budget on
Yesterday?
yesterday. And then we met again today to finalize it.
And we're not asking for a vote tonight, so
Okay.
don't-
Yeah, no vote
We're
tonight.
still-
This is the presentation.
Okay.
we still have some key details to work out. How we get to that number being one of them.
So it's school committee's FY26 operational budget, and then we also have the capital budget in here as well at the end.
Why don't you do that?
Is there a reason why we're not doing? You want to do this before we have public comment? Is that the reason why you're doing it?
Yeah. All right. So, first of all, we just wanted to thank you to the residents of Holliston for supporting the tax override in September. This was an incredibly important step for our district and was supported by 67% of those who showed up to vote, and is greatly appreciated. So, as we go through our budget, just know that what we're able to do is only because of your support. The town's budget picture is still tight, though, again this year. When all the initial requests were put in and sent to the town manager, the initial cut based on the revenue projections at the time was a $640,000 deficit. So the town is certainly not awash with cash and is going to need to find, beginning to winnow that down some. The Holliston School Committee and Select Board have sent a joint letter to our state elected officials laying out the funding shortfalls, the weak Chapter 70 dollars, continued issues with rising special education costs, and other funding needs. And so the budget process at the state level continues, and so we don't have final numbers from there, but we're continuing to base it off of, I believe they're working off of the governor's number. The Holliston School Committee remains committed to meeting the commitments we made during the override by closing the gap to the Town Manager and Finance Committee recommended budget. Go forward to one more. Okay. So the Budget Subcommittee has worked closely with the Central Office Administration on identifying ways to close the gap from the superintendent's initial budget that was over a month ago. So we have new information since then, and so we're making some strides, which we'll go into in a minute. Since Dr. Kuska presented her budget, okay, up there we go. Updated information has come in. So specifically, our final recommendation will be presented on 3/27 with all the details, and we'll vote at that time. But the Budget Subcommittee has voted to recommend a bottom line budget request of $44,583,832, which is a $1.6 million increase over last year, or a 3.75% increase. This includes any sort of priority needs that we're able to fit in based upon how far down we can winnow the underlying level service budget. So as I said, we continue to look towards meeting our commitment to get to the 3.25% that as we said during the override, and we believe that we do have line of sight to that, but there's just some moving pieces to work on before we are able to finalize that with administration. Next slide. So just looking at sort of where we're coming from in fiscal year 25, where we said we would be with the budget with the fiscal projections that we made. So during the override, we projected that our budget for fiscal year 26 would be up by 4.26%. We recognized at the time that was obviously above the 3.25% that the town administrator, now town manager, had sort of allocated preliminarily to the school through the budget projections that he made. And when Dr. Kuska presented her initial budget over a month ago, that we were at 4.21 and then 4.68 when you included all the priority needs. So essentially the underlying budget, when you don't include the priority needs, we're kind of right on where we were projecting the number to be. Since then, as I said, we've continued to do some work, and we found some savings, the details of which we'll go into later, but we do believe we'll get to a 3.75 on an overall budget, and very close to the 3.25 on a level service budget. So I realize we would like to have some of the more details now, but we'll get those to you as soon as we're able to sort of finalize those. But it includes, as I said, moving pieces. One thing I'd like to note is that when going through all of this, we had originally projected a $700,000 decline in special education costs. However, you need to first net that with bringing back on the $750,000 that the town had picked up on a one-time basis for us. So our actual projection within the override override projections was for an increase in special education costs of $47,000. The current decrease in special education costs is $9,000. So we're actually under in special education costs from where we were originally projecting, despite the headwinds that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. We're slightly over on personnel, slightly under on operations. But that's before we've taken any sort of measures to look at enrollment and things like that. Any questions about this slide? The next slide is just kind of a list of the main drivers. Obviously, the largest is employee costs, most of which are contractual. We're also adding back the $750 from the special ed funding from the town. The district transportation of $245,000, which is roughly in line with the $275,000 we projected. The bus contract would go up to account for the increased need for additional buses and the cost per bus to implement the new start times and getting everybody onto 2 start times from 3 currently. Special education transportation services are up a little over $100,000. Custodial services are up almost $45,000. Administrative technology, which is some programs and subscriptions and things, up $31,000. Other operational costs are up $24,000. Then there you've got some contracted services for medical, up $13,000. Utilities up $10,000. Athletics up $10,000. District-wide technology up $4,000. Heating of buildings down $26,000. Norfolk Aggie down $99,000. The maintenance of buildings, we removed the $100,000 that was put in there as part of the override. And then the reduction in the net special education tuition costs of $884,000. I just want to highlight the Norfolk Aggie number. That is a risk that we currently see. So that is consisting of essentially a net +1. There are 3 graduating seniors currently. And we are budgeting for 4 new enrollments, and there have been 9 applications. So that is a potential risk if we have significantly more applications. It's about $30,000 a student. Last year we saw some favorability where the numbers actually came in below where we were expecting. So we'll see that we don't find out for a few months from that. So
Are those increases in state aid locked in? Like we know we're getting them, or is there?
The circuit breaker.
Yeah, our circuit breaker, we have that
Okay.
out now. It's a 2-year grant. We received the circuit breaker from 2024 in the fall of 2025, and we started to get it over like several payments over the course of this year, but we don't use it this year. We've been accessing the 2023 circuit breaker that we received in 2024 this year, and we'll use the next year section.
Got it.
Any other questions on this? These are all the numbers that came out of the parts 1, 2, and 3, which are later that Dr. Jordan and Dr. Kuska have already presented. So then looking at the payroll, which is the next slide. Again, this is the same information that was presented earlier. It's a lot. We'll post this to the town's website for those of you that don't have like 620 vision. I think that's how it goes, right? But it shows it currently before any additional adjustments and no additional retirements like that we know is up 4.93% for payroll. The next is the operations slide. That's the same one that we've looked at a number of times. Special education is on slide 9. And again, this will be on the, we'll put this on the website so that people can look over the numbers. Looking at priority needs, which is slide 10, we agree and want to move forward trying to get the 5 priority needs that Dr. Kuska put forward. Additionally, we're suggesting trying to see if we can work in the quarter FTE increase to get the Holliston High School chorus performing arts teacher to a 1.0 from a 0.75. That's largely driven by our anticipated increased enrollment in those classes due to a shift to the AB schedule. So the hope is moving that out of DSB will allow more students to take advantage of those great offerings that we have. Again, though, that's going to be budget dependent, but it's also a fairly modest expense given the potential benefits. And I think that one other thing that that makes this more compelling is that over the last few years, we've seen a lot of turnover in this specific position. We'd also seen a lot of turnover in the Miller and middle school position. And then last year, we went to 1.0 FTEs for both chorus and band shared between Miller and Rams. And I think you'd say that that's been working out pretty well.
Yeah, the scheduling can be tricky, but the benefits of it has been the fact that the kids will be followed through with the same people has made a big difference already.
So because we've lost people to full-time jobs. Looking at the capital requests, the budget subcommittee is supporting a $1,029,000 budget request, comprised of $75,000 for Wi-Fi equipment upgrades at Rams in the high school. Though we note that there was a 40% rebate, so while we have to request the full $75,000, we expect to get $30,000 back on that if we go forward with that. $99,000 for the auditorium lighting. For those of you who've been following this for years, this number has been on the capital plan for a number of years at $250,000, and Dr. Jordan, Dr. Kuska sort of put pen to paper working with to winnow down to exactly what we need to fix right now. There are still additional things that can be done over time.
Yeah, we can, after we do this, we can kind of a la carte thereafter if we need to.
Yep. But this gets the risk of failure and not having lights out of the way. And very importantly, too, it's transportable. So if we did get a new high school, we could actually move the lights to the new school. Additionally, there's $75,000 for exterior doors across the district. So over time, doors need to be replaced. And then we are still working on sort of finalizing a number. The administration is still working on finalizing a number, talking to the different departments. But right now, we're estimating that we will need $30,000 for additional supplies at the high school to implement the schedule change. And so we're going to include that as part of our capital request. Finally, we're going to be looking for about $750,000 to finish or to do the Rams roof in one go. The initial plan was to do half of it and then half of it later. When we got the bids in, the bids came in lower than expected, and the money that we got appropriated in the fall was actually able to do 2/3 of the budget, and it's 2/3 of the roof. And this will finish the roof. Doing it at one time saves about $100,000 versus splitting it up into two.
So scaffolding and setup costs.
And then that's just the override projection analysis. So that's where we stand right now. I don't know if there are any questions, but the plan is by the 27th we will sort of, if you go back to slide 5, we will have the TBDs filled in and sort of a list of different changes and how we're going to get to the number where we need to get to. But one thing I can say, we're looking at a bunch of different shifts, but the expectation is that it will not result in any job elimination, any people job eliminations. So it's a good thing. Okay.
Just to be clear, though, make sure everyone's clear. If there's enrollment shifts, which we should be aware of, are there? I want to be clear to the community that when we say there's no people, people will be like, oh, if there's enrollment shifts, in that case, what's the process? And is there a possibility there are folks that are not qualified to take on a new role?
So every year we look at enrollment shifts potentially, and we also look at retirements, and then we determine what the true needs for the upcoming year is. So I mean, regardless of budget, we also are frugal and try to be prudent of what our true needs are. So we've had to shift staff based on enrollment bubbles that have gone up. We definitely have seen a decline overall at Placentino. So there could be, moving forward, some positions that will not be in the budget next year, which will help offset some of the needs that we have. But we're hoping to maintain all of the staff, again, with attrition and retirements and all of that. So there may be potentially some less positions, but there will be.
And we're confident the Tetris pieces of who's qualified to do what roles will be able to.
Yeah, we have to look at all of that, and then we also
Okay.
we move people around every year just based on, sometimes just the movement happens, the bubble goes up, and people unfortunately have to move to accommodate a higher level in one grade than the other.
Okay.
I would add just, it's very early in that process. We feel really good about the number and where we're going, and so our goal is to have as little to no impact on people as possible. But that's we're pretty early, and we got a lot of we'll learn in favorability over the next couple months.
Got it.
And also keeping in mind that we're looking to maintain the good class sizes. We're not looking to top off and have high numbers. We've been able to stay below, in most cases, the number that is the recommended top in the school committee policy. So we're not looking to get to that top number in any way, but we also need to make sure that we're not having very small class sizes in the same way.
Dr. Jordan, there's a mention of district transportation for the new start times of $245,000. Do we have a contract in hand with Holmes or anyone else that's been settled?
We have his estimate as far as that, and then are just working through when we would do the signed contract for him. But his estimate comes in as of right now below what we more or less projected by hairs, but
hopefully,
yeah.
Okay.
But this is they're. Where the things that I think at this point, which I know could potentially impact that transportation budget, were just recently we had to add a smaller bus this year, so it's less about apples to apples. We've had to add some smaller buses and some different things in situations that those are still drivers as far as that budget line with Homes. But based off of comparing our budget, what we budgeted for transportation in FY25 to matching that to FY26, we're coming up pretty good.
Okay.
But I do know of at least one small bus that we're looking at. We probably are going to need to add, which might come in a little bit higher than what we were hoping for.
Okay. Do we think that we'll have that negotiated by the time that we have to vote next time? That the contract will be settled by then?
I can definitely talk with him.
It
and
would
see.
be helpful if we
Yeah.
could.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Just to keep in mind, we will end up probably changing our recommendation.
No, I know. This is the first time I've seen this, so I just wanted to.
Sure. Fair enough. No,
And
I
I
just
don't
wanted-
really have any other questions to ask because I just saw it when I said.
No, I just wanted to remind everyone that, just
Yeah.
because when we vote on the 27th, and that obviously goes forward to the Finance Committee,
Right.
and we begin the negotiations, and
Yeah.
we'll go through it again. So.
Just out of curiosity, when we get this approximate $30,000 back in rebates, what are we putting that towards?
That's going back to the capital fund.
Capital fund.
Yeah, so that doesn't go to us, that goes back to the town. Or pizza. But it does sort of lower the net expected sort of expense.
Right.
Or pays for high school supplies.
That'll be a sliver just under $1 million then.
Yeah, look at us go. All right. Everyone good? Okay. So we'll move on to public comment now. We do have a bunch of people, so I'm going to ask that we try to keep it to 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone on the Zoom that is going to want to, we only have one person, is there anyone on Zoom who wants to participate in public comment? Just raise your hand so I know that we...
If they can use the raise hand feature, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Just stand up here.
Plus one person wrote in. me to
Oh,
read
okay,
it.
great, so we get, and then, so actually we're going to get 13.
Okay, so no one online. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to do the time?
How much time are we allowing?
2?
2 minutes.
And Donald will raise her hand at 30 seconds, just to give you a warning. So first up, we have Stephen Lima. And if you could just state your name, you don't need to give your address if you're a student, but your grade would be great.
Stephen Lima, I'm a junior. Firstly, I would like to thank Jim Morelli from Boston 25 News for taking interest in this issue. Hi, my name is Stephen, and I'm a junior here at HHS. The vast majority of students believe that we have not had our voices heard. Mr. Aguda proved this when he stated at past meeting, quote, general consensus is the current schedule is awful, end quote. I have not heard anyone who will be directly affected by this schedule change share this opinion. It is your responsibility to use the students' feedback before making such an impactful decision. I bring a different perspective. I've diagnosed dyslexia and anxiety and have had tremendous issues in this district. My mom has even been told by a major decision for accommodations that just because you have dyslexia doesn't mean it impacts you academically. Make this make sense. I'll help you. You can. The schedule will make everything harder. It creates the possibility for now 8 tests before every single break because all teachers want to get working beforehand. This will directly lead to a tremendous increase in anxiety and stress for me and many other students. Additionally, as someone with dyslexia, my brain works slower on all academic tasks. So with the increased course load, the amount of work I'll have to do outside of school will tremendously increase. In one of his many emails to me, Mr. Alfred stated, quote, it will not be doubling the work. This is factually wrong. More classes mean more work, and that's the truth, especially before breaks and during finals. Let me use this analogy. If your boss came to you and said you now have to do 8 tasks instead of 4, and you had no time, you would be mad. This is how we feel. The idea that we will not have an increased workload is insanely inaccurate. It makes me question how much you all, other than Mrs. Lestevnik, truly understand the impact of this change. This schedule is a rush fix. It's a rush fix for an issue that you seem to think is present. Mr. Alfred even stated, quote, is the AB option perfect? No. End quote. Why rush into something that isn't perfect? What you all should have done, and what I urge you to do now, is find an option that's perfect and spend the rest of your time to implement it. I thank Mrs. Stedling for voting no and urge you all to reconsider because we will be suffering for it. Thank you.
So Steve, okay.
Back, just thanks.
Just other than a complete reversal of the decision, though, are there any things that you've seen that we might be able to do to help with alleviate some of your concerns?
Well, I talked with Mr. List, as you had said, and basically what came out of it is all the issues remain present, and no one knows what's going on because there's a lack of communication. And from what I understand and what I know is true from talking with some people, that the only reason why the schedule got approved is because the only one that the union didn't need to say yes on. So in my mind, it's just a rush fix for an issue that, great, you may want a new schedule, I can understand that, but spend the time to implement it. 2 months, you started last year, but you didn't really spend the necessary time to implement the schedule, and now we're going in next week to course selection, and no one has any idea. Mr. List gave some forms, but he himself has no idea what he's no idea what he should lobby for. I had a meeting with him. He was saying, oh, do you think this or this could be helpful? Because he doesn't know what to fight for. Because he himself, you guys used the word feasible. This is the only quote feasible option, but it still limits so much for the students. And all your counter arguments to why you think this is a good fix, all can be disproved. It's just, I think, as Cynthia said, a forum where we could actually voice our concerns and you all listen would be very beneficial.
Thank you. So we'll try to do better communication, and I think talking to Mr. List myself, he seems to be trying to find some solutions to some of the issues that are underlying to address some of the concerns that the students have had. So I think that's more why he's asking questions. But we can definitely work on the better communication piece of it. Oliver?
Oliver, 2 minutes. I'll tell you when there's 30 left, okay?
I wrote a little bit more, so I'm just going to talk fast. If you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you.
My name is Oliver Brown. I'm a junior. I live at 66 Winthrop Street. I'm representing the voice of a lot of students here at Holliston who signed a petition that I made, plus the survey that they released. At the last school committee, the HSC made a unilateral decision to change our schedule to a 2-day, 8-block format. Rather than relieving stress about the current schedule issues, this has moved to only seed distrust, misunderstanding, and worry. As a student whose senior year would be severely impacted by this schedule, and based on my conversations with many of my peers, I can confidently say that the majority of students are against the 8-block format, with over 100 students going to sign my petition. The lack of communication around this decision is by far the biggest issue. The way we organize our lives is dictated by school and the classes we take. And I find it kind of ridiculous that we feel unheard and ignored when we're the ones who are affected. Not all students have hours of free time to study. And these are the students who play on sport teams, manage our school events, lead our clubs, theater productions, community, volunteering, academic competitions, and bring energy to our school. And they work jobs to pay for things like car payments, college, and those were some of the things I saw in one of the schedule surveys of people being worried about. And this committee has chosen to ignore the fact that the workload in this schedule increases significantly. And it fails to account for additional demands of assignments like projects and study guides, labs, and other time-intensive tasks that require careful planning and effort outside of the classroom. Additionally, according to Mr. List's Q&A, the schedule fails to address any of the math existing issues in the math program beyond that of year-long math, meaning that we'd be adding more content above our math classes that we already take. I know many of my peers who work into the night, and it's a lot. So I ask that you guys rescind your order to change the schedule. We should return to the original schedule and make more time to come to a better decision that includes all parties.
So I just appreciate that. Sounds like communication is still an issue, so we'll add that to the list. But are there any other things? I'll ask the same sort of question. Are there any other things that within the AB schedule that you can see that might help alleviate some of your concerns?
From talking to Mr. List, he did have the idea of introducing 1 or 2 study blocks that students could sign up for, kind of like a DSB that takes up a whole block so you don't have to take 8 classes. The issue I see with that is the whole idea around staying away from the 6-block schedule was to give more opportunity to students to take electives. This feels like the same exact thing, except now we're just in school for those other 2 blocks for those 81 minutes, and it's increasing the time of that we're in school and in classes. The time of classes is a huge issue. It's not something that's workable, and it's not efficient, and we need to do a lot better with it.
I would agree with you on that. The 81 minutes is long, and when I was exchanging emails with Mr. Lima, that was really what I was referring to, is that the 81 minutes is a long time, and I wish we could have addressed that more, but unfortunately, we're dealt the cards we are.
Just quickly, I'd like to note before I leave, from all the hours I've spent watching the school committee meetings and trying to understand this situation, Ms. Listevnik is the only person who's raised issues with this schedule, and the only person who's actually feels like she's been advocating for our side of the situation. And all times it feels that she's been silenced or interrupted. And I'd really like to stop seeing it, because she's been trying to work for the students, trying to raise the issues here, and ignoring issues is not going to be how we get to a better solution. Thank you.
Tracy?
Two minutes, I'll tell you 30.
Good evening, Tracy Flecker, 96 Rolling Meadow Drive, mom of 5, and a teacher. I'm speaking here tonight to commend the high school administration, particularly Mr. List, and the school committee for taking the necessary steps to bring about positive change at the high school level with regards to a new schedule. This schedule may not be ideal, but when more ideal schedules were presented, they were voted down by the Holliston Federation of Teachers for a variety of reasons that are now under legal review. So with their hands now tied, we ended up with an AB schedule. Students here tonight, I commend your ability to speak up. I truly do. But I ask you to continue to do your research and think for yourselves on this topic. To start that research, ask around to your friends from other towns who are working, playing sports, and running clubs. They are all taking 6 to 8 classes, as the majority of our state is. They are succeeding, and they are about to put in college, job, and trade school applications to a lot of the same institutions you are. Are you going to write your college application that you can't handle the classwork or the long lectures? Are you going to write a college essay about taking a stand for something because you thought it was going to be too hard for you to handle? You can all do hard things. Our students in Holliston at all levels are resilient, you're tech savvy, you're open-minded, and you can all do hard things. And although this seems hard, your perception will change over time, and you will soon realize that saying something is hard is not a reason to not do it. And ultimately, the schedule is not hard. It's new. You can take 8 classes, and you will succeed. Teachers are tasked to support something they do not all agree with for a variety of reasons, but our job as educators is not to scare our students into thinking that they can't do something that the majority of the entire state of Massachusetts is managing. Our job as educators is to help our students see their potential and know that they can do hard things, or in this case, just new things. I know that there are a number of teachers in support of these changes because they know of the real-world benefits to a schedule that allows for continued instruction and equitable access. 2 minutes. 2 minutes cut off now. My sentence, yeah, sorry. I will encourage all members of the Holliston community, particularly parents of high schoolers, to encourage your kids to embrace these new changes. There is so much potential out there for our students to really see what they are capable of doing, and all of our students. Thank you.
Timothy.
Good evening. My name is Timothy Haley, and I'm a sophomore at the high school. I'm here to share my input on the high school schedule change for next year. I feel that this is a bad idea because it is rushed and very few students are in support of this change. This change will result in twice as much homework and twice as many classes to focus on. More importantly, as someone who is on an IEP for dyslexia and ADHD, this change will no doubt affect my learning. It takes me a while to process information. I need consistency and repetition in my coursework in order to be successful. Reinforcement of subject matter on a daily basis is key to my learning. Having every subject with a question mark on math on an AB schedule will disrupt the consistency I need. It will only add to the fight to be a successful student. I will have a tough time recalling information that is not presented consistently. Have you considered the impact this will have on learners like me? I urge you to please reconsider this change for the population of learners much like me who often don't have the courage to speak up about our struggles. I ask you to develop and research a plan that balances the needs of all students, including those who are struggling the most. Thank you for your consideration.
So Timothy, I'm so glad you brought up consistency and the time it takes you to learn, because that hits close to home with my daughter, who also has dyslexia and ADHD. And one of the things that I think is really beneficial about the schedule is that it includes the consistency. It's not every day, but it's every other day, but then it's for the whole year long. And so, one of the things that, we've seen is that learning in small bites and having longer periods of time with which to allow it to be absorbed actually helps in your learning, because now you're taking a class over the entire year. And so if you miss a lesson, or you're struggling with something for a little longer, you have more time to work with your teachers, work with the material, and study over the entire course, rather than having to consolidate it down into very succinct blocks. So I can understand the apprehension and the anxiety around the change, but I really hope, and please come back to us in a year and let us know how it goes. But I think that people will find that having a whole year to take a class will actually help with some of those issues. So but I would just like to also ask, what I've asked the other students is, are there anything specifically about the AB that you think that we could work on to help make the transition easier?
I would just say communication, like everyone else has said. I've just got a lot of confusion from teachers, administration people, and it's just not been clear to us as students. Thank you.
Sean? Sean Bilodeau, yeah. Yeah, you're good.
All right. I'm Sean Bilodeau. I'm the band director, music teacher here at HHS. I want to share my perspective on the issue of the schedule. Inherently, my perspective has bias. However, I want to make this clear. I have no agenda other than the success of our students and our entire school community. As some of you know, I was on the original scheduling committee that worked for months in collaboration with building administration with the goal of coming up with a scheduling framework that would better meet all of our students' needs. A few of those factors: students across all learning demographics have difficulty getting electives they want due to our current schedule. Students with academic support needs don't get the same access to classes and opportunities. We have classes, electives in particular, that have unbalanced numbers. And current research shows that the brain processes information better with smaller, more consistent exposure, regardless of content area. Now, we are in this position where it has come down to what is worse: do nothing and let the inequities continue for how long? It's been decades. Or do what could be done within the HFT's current contract, the AB schedule. Where we are now is that there is no good answer, even though we had it in our grasp. The way that HFT leadership chose to engage from the start is disappointing. As time went on, my concerns to fellow faculty on that committee fell on deaf ears. There should never be a bargain or negotiation as to whether we need to make a change. This is exactly what the HFT leadership has turned this into, due to their spin, misinformation, poor negotiation, and unwillingness to listen. This needs to be about what we need to make positive change happen, the process of how it happens, and what supports the faculty best to make that happen. I believe in the work and the collaboration I experienced before I was removed from the committee by the HFT leadership. That is why I voted to advance the 5-day rotation framework that I did. I am proud of my now 12 years here. I am proud of the vision of graduate work that we did. I want to make sure every kid gets to live and breathe that every day. As a parent myself, I constantly ask myself how I would want my kids' school community to collaborate. And we all, every adult and student here that has any stake in this, deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Jean?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vishal Ramanathan, and I'm a freshman here at Holliston High School. And just as everyone here, I just want to talk about the concerns I have and common concerns that other students that I've talked to have had with the new AB schedule. So this new AB schedule has been proposed and shown to students, which has sparked a lot of questions without ultimately affect students that are participating in sports, have jobs after schools, extracurriculars, and their ability to manage all that work. A big issue to this new schedule is, as many kids have discussed, that students will have far more homework than they do now, roughly 1.5 to 2 times the amount that they do currently. And the constant switching every other day would also be detrimental to students, that maybe they're absent one day, you're missing 2 days of that certain class. And as trying to keep all the memory of different topics that are being learned can make it difficult to get a proper hold on certain concepts if you're in higher classes like AP Biology or AP US History. And one point I also really want to hit on is concerning students that have to go home and either work a job or take care of younger siblings, as there may not be someone at home to do so consistently. Caregiving would be difficult with the amount of homework that they'd be assigned. And stress and anxiety has been an issue for many people that I know, and putting a schedule out like this that places students, faculty, and many others on blast isn't very beneficial to the cause. And then Aside from the students, the individuals who are going to be affected significantly are the teachers. They are the backbone and foundation of the learning process here for the students and are the reason that we know what we know. An issue that arises with the AB schedule is the lack of personal connections that teachers will be able to have with their students. Currently, if a teacher has 3 classes of 25 students, they have 75 students at any given time. With this new schedule, for certain teachers teaching like 6 to 7 classes every semester, this would mean an increase to 150 students, which would hurt the connections that they'd be able to foster. With so many students, it's much harder to establish a sense of trust within a student, and for teachers, this would also affect them as their motivation to teach a class could be hindered. It'd be tiring for them and essentially drain them of their passion for teaching. I can confidently say that I credit my good academic performance to the connections that I've made with my teachers, as it allows for students to look forward to a class when they know they have a teacher that is eager as well. That's the power of connection. Ultimately, I want to acknowledge that I know your job as school committee members isn't easy. However, the decisions that are being made in this room affect us as students and the faculty and staff. We're the ones that are directly affected by this decision, and that's why the time and consideration that is put into these decisions should be taken with the utmost importance. For many of you, this may be a decision that you get to make and move on with. But for us, this is something that will impact everything. And making sure that this process isn't rushed is critical in ensuring the well-being of students, teachers, faculties, and the quality of Holliston High School education for years to come. Thank you for your time.
If I could, you said that this would increase the workload by 1.5 to 2 times?
Yeah.
How did you arrive at that?
Because if you're looking at AP classes and math classes, as I've talked to Mr. List and gone to his meetings, certain math classes, if you want to double up as a sophomore next year, which for me would look like having Algebra 2 honors and then proceeding to pre-calc honors, those classes would be occurring every single day. So you wouldn't be having as much homework in different classes, as that math class would be taking up 2 of the 8 possible blocks you have. And then for AP classes, once again, 2 of your 8 blocks for the first semester and then every other day for the second semester. So if you cancel out, do the math, you reach roughly 0.6, which is essentially how I rounded down to 1.5.
But so in this scenario, you're actually only taking 6 classes, right? You're not actually taking 8.
No, you'd be taking, if I were doubling up with math, I'd be taking 7. Because think I have an AB.
But then if you did the AP, you'd be taking 6.
Well, yes, correct.
Right.
But you're still going to have that.
But isn't doubling up on math what we're doing right now?
What? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Isn't doubling up on math, taking math for, 1 math class for a full semester, isn't that what we're doing now?
Yes, sir. That is also what is going to be provided, or at least when I talked with Mr. List, that's what it seemed.
For some math classes?
Yeah, for certain kids that want to progress higher in the math.
I'm just still trying to understand how we're getting to 1.5 to 2 times the workload, because I certainly, that would concern me if I could really get to that number. But it seems to me like more like the learning will take place over the course of a full year, and if we were actually doubling the workload.
But it's not happening over the course of the full year. You're separating the class to be every other day. It's not constant, just as Mr. Bilodeau said, it's short amount consistently. This is every other day in a span of 81 minutes. Not that many kids, like kids with ADHD, like Stephen, you have difficulty to focus for that long. An 81-minute class period every other day. That's not having the class consistently in a small amount throughout the year.
No, we're talking about workload, though, and you're taking the class over the entire course.
You just changed the topic.
Can I interject? This is public comment, so.
Well, no, but I'm just trying to understand.
I understand.
Hold on a second. I'm just trying to understand, because one of the complaints that the students have had is that we're not listening to them, and so I'm simply trying to understand what he's saying and how he's interpreting what's going on, so that I can listen and I can then sort of consider that and respond. So
It's not what it sounds like, though.
Thank you.
I'm simply trying
I'm just saying
to.
that's not what it sounds like.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it Diwali or Javali? Is Sanika Javali?
Sorry.
Did I?
Hi, my name is Sonika, and I'm a sophomore at Holliston High School. I kind of just want to start off by saying that I understand why we're having a schedule change, and I get why it's necessary, so what I'm saying is not to necessarily oppose it. I just don't agree with the way that this has been going about. So first off, the information that we have been receiving has been all over the place and confusing. One week we're hearing about one schedule, the next week we're hearing about another, and then we were hearing about how there was going to be no schedule change implemented because there wasn't enough time for there to be one, and now just 2 weeks ago we found out that we're having a new AB schedule. And we're already starting to think about course selections for this new schedule. It's so complicated and everything seems like it's being rushed and not handled carefully. Our schedule change will have a drastic impact on students' lives during high school and also outside of high school. If this doesn't work out, then students' grades can drop, they can be extremely overwhelmed and even lose sleep, and this is not to mention like the time that we're losing off of AP classes and the amount of students that we have taking multiple APs a year. If this happens, what are you going to do? Are you just going to change the schedule again? Because that's not fair to us, especially the sophomores and freshmen, because it's not fair if we have to have 3 different schedules during our time in high school. And we as students should not be experimented on with these schedule changes. That's why we need to go about them very carefully so that everyone's voices are heard. We just want there to be more time and thought put into the schedule change, and we also want student and teacher opinions to be heard and accounted for because a lot of us feel like they haven't been so far. If there is to be a schedule change, I think that it should be maybe pushed back a year just so that the transition can be a little bit more smoother and that so students and teachers can have more time to prepare for it and hopefully have their voices heard better. Thank you.
And just similar to what I've asked your classmates, are there specific things though within the AB that you think could be addressed to help with some of the concerns you have?
For me, like personally, I'm planning on taking like around 4 APs next year, and obviously that's like very heavy, it's very rigorous. And my personal concern is for my 3-term AP classes, because I'm going to be taking like Calc BC and like APUSH, and those are 3-term classes, the time that I'm going to be like losing on those AP classes, because I've talked to teachers, I've talked to other students who have talked to teachers, and those teachers who are running those APs are saying that we're going to be losing time because of the new schedule. Because of the AP exam that's like in May or whenever it is, we're losing time off of the schedule because obviously we have 3 terms right now, but if we do the full semester every day that we have that AP, and then if it's alternating the second semester, we're going to lose days. So I'm just like a little bit concerned about that because I don't want my coursework to be rushed before the AP exam because I feel like that might affect my score.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stacey?
Good evening, Stacey Raffy, 20 Arthur Street. It was recently reported in the Holliston local town pages that the Millis Select Board and School Committee engaged in conversation with members of our school committee about forming a regional school district. Those emails were published, and on one of the emails on November 18th, 2024, the chair of the Holliston School Committee states that he discussed the proposition with members of the Holliston School Committee at the previous school committee meeting. In reviewing agendas and minutes from school committee meetings from November 14th to the present, no reference to this topic was found. This is really concerning. As Select Board Chair Tina Hines stated at the March 10th Select Board meeting, it is important to assure Holliston taxpayers and families that the Select Board has not had any private or public discussion about this matter, and that any discussion of this matter would be held in open public. It would be held in open public meetings by the Select Board. Such a decision is multifaceted and will require a lengthy and public process. I am asking that you put this on your agenda for March 27th and you have a conversation about what the conversation happened with Millis, and then have a conversation with the community. It is too important. It is about budget. It's about multiple things that affect both communities. Please address it. Thank you.
So we did discuss that in executive session under option for grants. There was no official sort of proposal by Millis, we had a brief discussion about whether we thought it made sense, and the committee consensus was that it didn't. So there was no one was cut out of anything because there was not anything.
Actually, I think my recollection was that the consensus was that we had a lot on our plate right now, and we wanted to revisit it later. That was my recollection.
There wasn't anything.
No, we didn't have any proposition, but we didn't actually openly put it on an agenda and discuss it, so we didn't vote on anything. So
No, we
it
didn't
wasn't
vote
on
on,
the
we didn't vote
agenda.
on anything, exactly. I'm just saying that there was definitely no vote. And at this point, my understanding is that Millis has decided to go in a different direction anyway, so I'm not even sure there is anything to discuss at this point anyway. Rebecca.
Rebecca Kiley, 37 Overlook Drive, Holliston. I have a sophomore and a junior here at Holliston High School. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you in person. I've communicated with you via email over the past few months. I would just like to say that I continue to have significant concerns with the schedule change proposed for the fall of 2025. I'm concerned with the rollout and the impact this will have on our students and teachers. Throughout this meeting, there's been questions regarding the increase in workload. The workload increases as students are currently managing 4 classes in a given semester. When moving it to 8, that's an increase because they'll be happening simultaneously. I understand that they're taking 8 classes over the course of an entire year right now, but what you're asking them to do is to increase it and take it all at the same time. This will be detrimental to many students, specifically those with disabilities, and it is 100% more work than what they're currently doing. This decision has directly or indirectly created a rift between administration, school committee, and teachers. There's an overall feeling of a lack of transparency and that voices are not being heard. It feels as though the students are being used as pawns in an effort to gain compliance on other issues. A schedule change is definitely needed, but we urge you to give this change the time needed so it can be implemented with fidelity and appropriately. You're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and it just isn't in the best interest of students. Thank you for your time.
Ali?
My name is Ali Bashir, and I am a junior. To begin my speech, I'd like to read off slam poetry created by 2 sophomores, Colin Hogden and Jack DeGregorio, as a project for English 10, to use your voice and fight for your beliefs. Teacher-student connections will take an eternity. People who don't go to this school making decisions, how can that be? Teachers will have double the classes, they already have so much. Students will have double the homework, they'll have to study during lunch. Whether you're relaxing or studying, YouTube is such a great source. Imagine life with YouTube. Now that would be a force. 81-minute classes without any breaks. When you ask to go to the bathroom, should you have to wait? With that, good evening to the school committee members, the advisory council representatives, and the other many important faculty members at this table. As you know, I'm Ali Bashir, and for some background context, I've sat at this chair before. Last year in May, I came to get a Muslim holiday observed in our school system as a day off for a community. I argued that if Christians had many holidays, Jewish people had Yom Kippur, and Hindus got Diwali, why shouldn't Muslims get one as well? My argument had subtopics which helped support my claim, but my main point was equality. Equality is the belief that every person holds equivalent value in society, and this is the truth in every situation, including this one. I understand that the schedule change was intended to aid students who may need support throughout a year, or to help band and chorus members have more practice time in school. However, a majority of students will also be affected by this change. I know many students who had planned out junior and even senior classes in sophomore year using the current schedule, and the schedule being posed right now would affect their ability to take the classes they had intended within the years they scheduled as a result of this new switch. And let's not forget, as juniors, that senior year technically counts for something. To have something like a routine that we followed for 3 years be completely blown out of the water is like really appalling, and it's fully inconsiderate. Not only are those students being affected, but students interested in taking AP courses and their respective exams may find it difficult to adjust to the current schedule, as they will lose substantial time, about 30 hours, in preparing for the AP exams they may have to take. To put it into perspective, any amount of time extra is super important to students taking AP exams due to the intensity of said exam. However, students aren't the only people directly being affected by the schedule change. As teachers, all right, fine. Overall, the schedule change may constitute many different wrongdoings, despite causing a positive change for a small group of people. However, as someone who can respect equality, I would like to propose a better option. What if we had 5 block days and kept the same format of scheduling with semester and term classes, which is likened to a real college environment? Right now, there are 4 minutes being added to each block. Why not bring it back down to 77 and add them to the 5th block? The 5th block could be that of a lengthened DSP, where it can be an opportunity for students to have more time to cram for the next test in the next block, a time period to get homework done for students who get home late due to sports and careers, more practice time for band and chorus, and for those who especially need it, people in need of support and extra attention. Thank you.
Michael?
Michael Colonel McBride, junior, Holliston High School. The new schedule changes made for the 2025 to 2026 Holliston High School schedule come as a bit of a shock to many students, including myself. Not in terms of preparedness for a possible schedule shift, but in terms of the fact that when I talk amongst many students in mine and other grades, very few people that I've spoke to wish to enable the schedule after it was first mentioned in the student and teacher surveys. Many teachers that I've spoke to are also against the new schedule change. What I'm asking is this: where are the results of those surveys? Why were the majority and the most important people in this building, teachers, and those who will be directly affected, completely ignored? It doesn't make any sense. The rush decisions by the Holliston School Committee, the start and stop times are a major factor. I came here straight after work, directly after school. I start almost every day at 3 p.m. Where's the concern for the working students of the school? The complete switch on a group of kids going into their senior year and being prepped to go off to life, and many to college, like myself, is the real issue. I'm not concerned about the amount of work we are about to face. I'm more concerned about the change that is now coming directly before one of the critical years in which students will now face stress, inconsistency, and overwhelming feelings in a year that is supposed to be enjoyable and educational. The comments made by students who have taken the time to show up tonight should be voice enough to consider a change for the proposed ship set to sink that is headed for Holliston High School. Thank you.
I don't have the survey results. I would say, though, that the issue with them is that, unfortunately, Mr. List was prohibited from discussing the schedule options when the survey was being conducted, which makes it really difficult to understand and know whether those survey results are actually accurate, because people were filling them out without sort of the complete set of information. So that's one of the difficulties with the schedule results. But I mean, I hear you. I mean, it's definitely an issue, and when I think it's pretty clear that we need to do a better job communicating what's going on with you all. So is there anything, though, as I asked your classmates about the AB specifically, that you think that could be addressed to help alleviate some of your concerns?
I think what can be addressed, especially in terms of that survey, is the block schedules that were proposed were all shown out in there. They were actually, there was a diagram for each block schedule that was shown out in each of those survey questions that we would look at. It had a full explanation written, about a paragraph long, on each one of them, explaining what the schedule would do, and it had each block written out. I know a lot of students had filled that out, and a lot of teachers had also voiced the concerns, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe there was also a teacher survey that went out, and none of the results were released. And I've talked to countless teachers and students who both filled out that survey. I know Oliver back here has started a petition that has gotten, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Oliver, but about 100 signatures at this point. And there are students and teachers who feel that they're not being listened to, and the results of the survey weren't shared, so there's nothing to say that we have been listened to. And while all the blocks were shared, and we did have correct information on that schedule and the changes that would be coming, the results weren't seen for that. So what happened to them? Does Mr. List have the results, and why is he not sharing them?
I don't have the answer to that question right now. But I was more speaking specifically about the AP schedule and going forward, but that's fine. Thank you very much. You have an email comment?
There was an email comment as well. Let me just
I think we've gotten to everyone in the
pull
room.
that up. Okay. It is from Kathy Chartier, 68 Pilgrim Road. I'm writing to urge you to vote yes to forming a subcommittee to investigate leveling in the middle school for math and possibly bringing back math leveling in 7th grade and 3 math levels in 8th grade. Math leveling in middle school is the only way to meet the needs of all learners and follow the DESE model for having a full year of Algebra 1 in 8th grade. It was successful for many years and allowed for a complete Algebra 1 course in 8th grade and a course for students who need more time on instruction. It is also fair to teachers. Our teachers work hard, and with all of the new things being thrown at them, it is hard to meet the needs of a huge gap in levels of math understanding in a math class as one person. Additionally, I often tutor students who have serious confidence issues and doubt themselves because they are pushed too fast in math or are seeing other students on the higher level get the material while they don't. For those students going into the full Algebra 1 next year at the middle school, there will be a lot of gaps in their Math 8 standards knowledge. While there will be some stopgap measures implemented to catch students up and fill in big gaps in their understanding of the 8th grade math standards, this is not a sustainable model going forward, and thus leveling in math needs to occur in the middle school in grade 7 to allow for Math 8 standards being taught in grade 7 and some Math grade 7 math standards being taught in grade 6. It can be done via differentiation in the classroom in grade 6 for those students who are ready. Thank you, Kathy Chartier.
Okay, great. So that brings us to the end of our public comment section. I just want to thank and commend all the students who came out today to speak up and advocate for your beliefs and views. That takes a lot of guts to get up, get on camera, and speak to the community, and you should absolutely be commended for that. So I really appreciate that. I think that, and if I'll give the opportunity for anyone else to sort of make a comment, but I mean, I think that we are listening, we are hearing. We'll take the comments and feedback back. We'll talk to the administrators and see if there are things that we can do to make improvements within the AB schedule. But we're certainly here to do what we hope is in the students' best interest. So no one is looking to harm you. Does anyone else have anything they want to add?
I would just ask that anybody that had public comment or didn't have an opportunity to make sure you email, if you could, email the school committee, the full school committee, your comments, because it's hard for us to remember every single thing that you said, but it would be helpful if you could send it to us.
That's a good point. And maybe add just too, if you're looking for a response or you're just sending it to have it, so we have it.
I would say a majority of the feedback was around communication. And I actually asked with the raise of hands, is it the AB schedule or was it communication? Could communication get us to the point where AB?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't need to incite that.
Actually, I'm a junior. I think for me personally, the way I see it is that it's mostly about the communication. I think the AP schedule specifically doesn't work for a lot of students, but it's not the schedule change itself that we're unhappy about. I think from the get-go, it was just approached completely in the wrong way. There was no consideration of students and their opinions, and so now, I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I can't tell you, but I think continuing the way it has been so far, you are not gonna gain back student confidence, confidence from the students, or I just don't see how continuing with the AB schedule will, reassure the student population after, just not being involved in the conversation at all. So that's what I think.
So as it relates to my comment on communication, I think we all need to look at each other. The committee, administration, HFT, the teachers, everyone involved in this decision to bring change to the students, which is who we're here to help and serve. we need to get through this division. I mean, I think division creates breakdowns in communication. We need to work together on this, and that's where I hope we can get in the future between all the parties. And I think that's why there is breakdown in communication. We would love to better plan this, and obviously it can't take years to do things, but 2 weeks is not a lot of time for anything, and I empathize with that. But I think working together will allow us in the future to get to a point where we can better plan it and be aligned on things to then move forward for you guys. So appreciate all the comments.
I'd also like to add that a lot of I was writing down the concerns that you shared and the questions that you brought up around how, what are the implications, what's the impact of the schedule going to be for students. And I think a lot of what you said kind of echoes some of the questions that we had. And in the discussions that we've been having over the last several months with Mr. List, we've really tried to understand what's going to be the student experience. If kids have jobs, if you have AP classes, if you're getting support in school, what is going to be your experience with this schedule moving forward? How feasible is it to implement for the school, but how feasible is it for students to live this schedule moving forward? So I did write down your questions and comments. I also echo what Cynthia said. If there are additional things that you didn't get to say, please share it with the school committee, because I think we'd like to share this with Mr. List, so that he and the guidance counselors can improve that communication and get those answers to you.
So I am concerned with, there's a lot of things that have to fall into place over the next days, couple weeks. April 4th, kids are supposed to be registered for their classes. And I'm just worried about if all of those things don't happen in a way that we need them to happen to make this a successful rollout for the 2025-26 school year. Do we talk about that again over the next couple of weeks?
I don't know if we have time for that.
I know he can't be here tonight, but he's confident that he's going to be able to get all this done, right?
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about in the past, anytime you change and alter a schedule, the administration has to work behind the scenes to make it happen in Power School. So once you voted to move that direction, the administration has been working to create that new schedule behind the scenes and get it to roll out. So the issue is all of that work moving forward is already happening. And then if you change a decision, then I don't know what the outcome is, just because they've already moved the work behind the scenes to get it.
It starts next week. We're a week away from opening.
So the students choosing their options happens, but behind the scenes they're building the template to get it to.
Can we get an update from Mr. List at the next school committee meeting?
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. I can just share that the training for the administration and counselors is next Thursday and Friday, all day with Power School. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I will say that that update is going to just be a more detailed version of what Dr. Kuska indicated. There have been kind of days of labor on the creation schedule, and even like the schedule stuff that you do every year with kids. And any change at that point would be a reset of something that was already starting about a month later than it usually does. So I would just say whatever, if there's any interest in change, is just noticing that we're already behind schedule as far as that, not even accounting for students registering on what needs to be done. So that's.
I think though there are some things that maybe we can consider. Maybe changes to the program of studies that might help address some of the anxieties, whether it's allowing students to only take 7 credits during senior or upper class years, reducing the weighting of the final exam to take some of the burden off of the sort of the feeling like they're going to take too many finals at once.
That part is like almost after. That's like once the framework and structures built in and put in, then it comes down to like what classes kids are signed up for, required for, and where they have space and where that exists is for us to try that.
But I think that's driving some of the concern and anxieties from the students. So, Dr. Custer, do you think we could get maybe some update on some recommendations? It doesn't need to be necessarily the complete list, but on some ideas that might help address some of the concerns?
Yeah, I don't want to speak for Mr. List not being here, but we will certainly, David and I will speak with him tomorrow and see what he could potentially come back with.
I also don't want to ask something of Mr. List, who's not here, but is there anything that we believe he can do with partnership with the administration to communicate more in the next few days? Because again, communication seems to be a gap. We don't have a lot of time, so we may need to pivot on a few things to get that communication and questions answered.
I think there's, 100%. I also think that, I was speaking with Mr. List yesterday, the day before on this, like, a lot of it is also helping students understand like their exact schedule and what that would look like. It creates a better like framework for doing that. Sometimes that can be challenging in like a large session because I think when you're talking about scheduling, a student and even a parent and even most of the folks at this table are looking at it through the lens of a single student or a single schedule and not the interactingness of 750 students on how that is scheduled. But like, I think Mr. List is looking for students who want to understand scheduling and is willing to spend the legwork, not just to spend time with those students on understanding their particular schedule and the impact that would have, but also just understanding scheduling as a whole, different types of schedules, different whatever that would be, but understanding specifically the AB schedule as a whole, the different like interacting things that bump into each other, what it addresses, what it doesn't address as well, that I know.
And we've talked a number of times just about sometimes on paper things seem very simple and it's far more complex. There's multiple puzzle pieces that we're talking about and moving one shifts another. And then we do know for a fact that there are some schedules that just are not feasible, just based on the parameters that we have and the limitations that we have. So some things will not. We know that some things will not work. So
I guess, though, considering AB is in place, are we putting additional mechanisms in place during? Because I agree. I mean, keep talking about this at the high level. Everyone has individual questions about their schedule. You can't really do that in a group setting. It's challenging. Yeah. But as we think about scheduling starting on March 21st, are there other mechanisms in place we do to support the students through this process? Because again, it's a change, so like we can't consider they're going to have the same process as last year. There's going to be more questions, more concerns, more options even, right? So how are we supporting them in that change this year?
I mean, I think that's absolutely something we can chat with Mr. List about as far as what to bring and better ways that we can do that. I think that we're hearing that from the students as far as different ways that we can kind of communicate that. And Mr. List, just encouraging students to meet with him individually in small groups, whatever, just to kind of talk about like what their concerns are and kind of understanding their exact schedule or scheduling as a whole and what some of the constraints are.
Yeah, and I know that he has met with some students already that had been asking questions. I would encourage students to schedule time with him again or with administration because I do think they want to be able to reassure students that and try to lower the anxiety as much as possible. So there is definitely an opportunity for students to reach out, as you said, small group or otherwise. I would encourage them to do so.
Yeah, I don't think, a student's meeting with Mr. List is not because he's necessarily supporting the AB schedule or the old schedule or other schedules. It's just to understand schedules too, and like understand, all right, what are the concerns you have or the things that you would want addressed or in your schedule, and just walk you through schedules and what those look like and exist and looking at this schedule, but anything else that they're wondering, just kind of having a good understanding of that. Having done myself schedules at middle school and high school, they're complex beasts in order to meet everybody's needs.
I think it's tough. We've had the same schedule for 30 years, but there's a reason why most districts have gone away from that block schedule, and why 90% or more of high schools in Massachusetts have 7 or 8 classes that occur at the same time. So it's not like we're moving to something that isn't tested, not just the norm, but just by far and away the overall majority of students. So,
but they're not 81 minutes long. And every other day.
Well,
It's very unique. So I just want to say I think that the students have shown themselves to be extremely resilient. It's been 5 years since the pandemic. You've all had to shift gears so many times. So I don't think that's about that you don't want to make change. It says that it's just too fast, too much. You haven't gotten enough communication, enough understanding. And I feel like that's what we're not hearing. Is that?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Really appreciate it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we'll move on to the technology update from Mr. McLeod.
Dan, this is the best part. I don't know why I was leaving.
I mean, there's better parts, even better parts further down.
All right, give me a minute. All right, so tonight I just want to give you a brief update on some technology things, answer any questions you have, but just kind of the high-level things that are going on in the tech department. So we'll begin with the PowerSchool data breach, just some updates there. I sent out, probably earlier in the week, communication about the breach from PowerSchool. They have the CrowdStrike report, which was an independent third party that investigated the breach to make sure there wasn't anything hiding under the rug. So there's some interesting things in that report. Also, Dr. Kuska and I attended, there's starting to be some class action suits against PowerSchool, and at some point down the road, you may be asked to participate in that. So we'll have more information. We'll start learning more about it. I'm just giving you a heads up that school committees may be involved in that decision sometime down the road. And we'll share all the pros and cons of doing that sort of thing. And then the identity protection, I'm getting some emails from families. I don't know if you all received your emails or not from Experian, but if you do not, on our website, PowerSchool's website, and I'll probably send it out separately now, you can enroll even if you did not receive the Experian email. So that's the latest there. We feel confident about the measures PowerSchool's taken according to that CrowdStrike report to make sure this doesn't happen again. We are taking our own measures, which is the next topic, cybersecurity. So as you know, we trained all staff January 17th during PD Day. Since then, we had a town tabletop exercise, so that was really neat. We worked with the vendor, Chief Cassidy, Chris Mayo, Kathleen Buckley, Travis, before he left, he was part of that meeting. And we're going to do it with the schools in April, but it's a great exercise where the vendor leads you on, if this happens, and they keep infusing more problems into this scenario. And we have to, as executives, kind of react and make decisions based on those infusions of problems. So the PowerSchool breach was sort of a reality check. We've had somewhat, I would say, like a tabletop with that, unfortunately. But that's a little bit different because we weren't compromised as a district or a town. It was more of a global episode, so it was a little bit different. So this tabletop is more, this happened in Holliston, and this is how we should react to that scenario. So we're going to do one, it's at the bottom here, April 8th, with senior leadership, and we also invited the town to be part of our tabletop because it's going to impact them. We also have an incident response plan that's brewing. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but that's going to be delivered to you when it's complete. Next time I'm up here, I'll be delivering that to you, whenever that is. It'll be complete by the end of April, I would think. And that response plan has all the details about if we have an incident, who to call first, for example, cyber insurance or law enforcement or both, and who does that calling and communication. All right, and then the middle one there is the Wi-Fi security. So one of the things we're learning, and this is something we've been working on anyway, is we have some holes in our infrastructure, and we're trying to plug those holes. So one of the recommendations for Wi-Fi is that an organization should be able to see who's on the Wi-Fi and not see what they're doing, but just see the devices and the users. So that's the HPS guest you receive. We can actually see, for example, like we sent that email to 639 people. It was really just all staff that had a Holliston email address, and 140 accepted the invitation. There was some, like, what is this all about? Like, are you trying to spy on me? No, absolutely not. It's just a best practice of cybersecurity. Organizations should see who's on their network. I actually I went to a conference today, and Google was telling us that a huge district south, they were getting all these CAPTCHAs whenever they went to Google, CAPTCHA after CAPTCHA. And they said to Google, can you basically whitelist our IP addresses so that doesn't happen? And it turns out that district, there was these routers that were DDoSing Google and attacking Google. So Google was completely justified by sort of putting those CAPTCHAs on everybody coming from that IP address because it was perceived as an attack. So Google, in that case, responded appropriately. The district was trying to work around that. But that's the kind of thing. That was a router on that district's network that they didn't realize was launching these attacks. So that's the kind of thing I worry about. We have, to be honest, we have users that get compromised and they spam districts all over the country. And that's what I'm going to get into next. So we got the approval, which I'm very pleased with. I advocated for this. We're purchasing a product called Google Workspace Plus for Education. So what this does is if we have a phishing attempt, and Dr. Kuska's on 90% of these attempts, her name is spoofed. It's typically like, please read this salary memo, and her name's there. She did not send it. But anyway, the staff can report that quickly now to an email called cyber threat. And then the first person that reports it, we can withdraw it from all the inboxes. We could not do that unless we purchased this product. So basically that email would go out, and we'd have to deal with all the people who said, we think this is phishing, we're not sure, and then we've had staff compromised by clicking that salary email and then giving up their credentials. And then once they do that, it's just a domino effect of bad things happening. I think the music email is the one I referenced where they try to sell that piano. So that's the bad actor trying to get people to pay them shipping for piano. Anyway, that's the fun we're dealing with, and AI is only going to intensify this. The thing we're noticing now is there's not those grammatical errors anymore in phishing attempts. They're rock solid because of AI. So it's harder and harder. So this tool will help us with that. It also has a ton of Google Classroom integrations, and the big one, which we're going to communicate to teachers very shortly, is grade pass back to PowerSchool. So that will cut the teacher workload if they choose to use Classroom. They don't have to re-enter that assignment and grade twice. They enter in Google Classroom, and it will sync with PowerSchool Gradebook. So at least that part will cut down on some teacher workload. And then it has Classroom Analytics. And then today at this conference, I heard a preview of what's coming, potentially in June. With this thing we purchased, this product, we're going to get all these other classroom tools. And the cool thing is the teachers have to have a Chromebook, which we just purchased last summer, and the kids have to have the Chromebook. And if those two parties have a Chromebook, there's all these cool tools that are coming as part of Google's suite and this product. So we're looking forward to all that. Lots of translation tools and accessibility tools and captions that teachers can turn on and off. And then Gemini, I heard about this today. Again, we've talked to administration about this. March is not a great time to launch this sort of thing. But we do have the ability to give Gemini to 13 years and older, and it's a walled garden, which means anything the students put in there is not going to be trained on that model. It kind of lives in our own Holliston environment, which is pretty cool. That's kind of groundbreaking, because chat and all these other products, whatever you put in is, who knows where it goes unless you pay for the enterprise or premium licenses. So stay tuned about that. We have a lot of work to do with Gemini and AI, but at least 13-year-olds, we do have the ability now with this product to give them an AI tool. All right, last thing is just a preview of the capital budget as it stands now. Dan touched on this earlier, the $75,000 for Wi-Fi. I just got final pricing in today. And just so you know, the $75,000 is the last chunk of Category 2 funding that Holliston received. It's a 5-year, we get a 5-year bucket of money from the federal government, from the FCC. And this 75 was all that was left in that 5 years. So that's why how that number came about. So we're basically going to try to fund as much Wi-Fi improvements as we can here at the middle and high school. Probably not going to be able to do it all. And so that's what next year's spring capital, there might be additional depending on what happens with the FCC. We don't know if there's going to be more funding coming from the government. If there is, then we'll ask for more Wi-Fi next spring to finish off the middle and high school. And then the auditorium lighting you heard about. Next fall, just to preview, this seems pretty solid. We'll have the Chromebooks, grade 5 and 8. And then we're gathering the inventory of iPads. This is a little bit tricky because of we're trying to forecast when Apple is going to say this version iPad is no longer going to be updated. Once we have that roughed out, we think it'll be about $60,000 to replace our iPads. And those are like school-based iPads that teachers check out for lessons, kids check out. We have about 40 to 50 in each building. They have this niche. iPads always have this niche, and without them, you're sunk to do certain things. They just have the App Store, and they have a lot of cool features. So I think they're here to stay, and we need to replenish them. We haven't done this in a while. Last time was actually COVID, and we only did teachers at that time with COVID funding. The student iPads, not so much.
How many iPads are we looking at for $60,000?
It's about, I think, 160 is what I forecasted, 180, something like that. And then the auditorium is potentially next spring again if we need additional lighting infrastructure for the high school auditorium. We don't know what that number is going to be. We're going to see how the summer goes, as long as everything goes well. See how the productions go, and then if there's anything additional, we should know that. I would say late fall, we could kind of forecast what else is needed for next spring. Other than that, I don't see any technology surprises coming as far as capital. This is my rough next year and a half. Any questions?
So am I understanding correctly that up until now, we didn't know who was on the network?
We can see our devices, like my Chromebook and David's laptop. We can see our devices, but we can't see. It's hard to pinpoint whose device it is. So that HPS guest, we now have a name attached because that was sent to you directly. We can find them. It's just not easy, and so we feel good about the student and staff networks. The HHS Wire and the PantherNet, to be honest, like I share that password pretty freely, knowing it's going to go away. We want to get to this model of you get the password in this email fashion, or we'll give you the password, but you have to go through a captive portal like the hotel Wi-Fi and make sure you've read the acceptable use policy. So that's how we're going to treat sort of, not HPS guests, that's actually a great network, even though it's a guest, it's high speed. There is going to be another guest network because we're trying to discourage, aside from your devices, trying to discourage BYOD, because as I shared a few minutes ago, every BYOD device is a threat. Not yours, but I'm saying it's a potential threat, I should say. Whereas these Chromebooks, this device, we can manage and control.
And just the bandwidth, because you have people that have their phones, their Chromebooks, and then they're bringing external devices as well, and we can't support unlimited.
Correct, and it's a lot of it's the threats, to be honest, and if we go down because of a BYOD device, then it's going to be ugly. And that's what the tabletop does. It kind of paints the picture for executives to start planning for that, because I'm not going to say it's probably going to happen, to be honest. Hopefully not under my watch, but it happens to lots of districts and organizations. So.
When you say BYOD, is that including students who bring their own laptop and don't use the school-issued Chromebook, or is that okay?
Yeah, so we're probably going to push it out next fall. Like, for example, you might see the guest network right now. We're probably not going to enforce and take down the HHS wire and the PantherNet until fall, because we don't want to impact like student projects. But we're going to start notifying students that those are going to go away and start preparing for the fall. Like they can use their BYOD on a guest network. I think they're going to find it's going to be a struggle, and their Chromebook is going to be a lot faster. And then again, that's less of a threat to the network overall.
There were a couple of programs that you were saying you took off of, like students can't use YouTube, and can you just...
Yeah, we actually heard from Google today on that. That was, the timing is not great, the March timing. We have no control over that. Even the Google employee did not know why Google picked March. It feels like it's some legal reason that they picked March to enforce this. But basically it's, YouTube is still available, but it's prescribed by teachers via Google Classroom and Google Slides. And those programs require parental consent. So we weren't comfortable with the backup plan if parents said no. And in this environment, we expect some parents to say, no, I don't want my student on YouTube, with the Power School breach and everything else. So until we have, and honestly, like, what's the backup plan for YouTube? But we do know we're going to put these as permissions on the annual student form in the fall. So there will be an opportunity for parental consent, but even then, it's, teachers have to figure out how to manage that in the classroom. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We may or may not do that unless we have the backup plan. Like, what if some students can and some students can't? So I'm just saying some districts are doing that. We're not quite there yet as far as getting consent. But Google's really forcing the hand here. They're enforcing parental consent for those services.
Do we know of many districts that have an all-out ban on YouTube versus including it in their parental consents at the beginning of the year?
Some did it early in the year.
An all-out ban or obtain consent?
Obtain consent, and some turned it off like we did. So it's kind of I can't give you a percentage, but like at this conference today, there was some on both sides. But it feels uncomfortable to me to say, we gave permission on parents' behalf, and allow YouTube. That doesn't feel right. So that's kind of where I am is, there's got to be a reason Google's doing this. No one really knows what it is. But we have to, figure out the plan if we're going to go parental consent, and then obtain that consent.
Thanks.
There's still screening tools though, too. Like it's not, you could be on YouTube, but it still screens out
Correct.
some of the content.
It's restricted and moderated YouTube,
Right.
so that could be the way to explain it to parents. Is it's not unfiltered YouTube.
Right.
We have a filter in place that moderates it, blocks images, blocks videos. So it's not like unfettered YouTube, but yeah, we need to work out all those.
But right now, a teacher can embed a video in a slide deck or something like that if there's a...
Correct.
Yeah.
And we've already made exceptions. If you're 18 years old, which some students email me about, they're exceptions. They can make their own decisions about this. It's anybody under 18.
More questions? Great, well, thank you, and thank you for all the hard work and
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jim.
keeping us up and running.
Cyber safety.
Okay, we don't have any policy updates this week.
There's supposed to be one on, but it got missed. Next time.
Sorry about that. Central office updates.
Yes, I did want to give you an update on the grant to support STEM career learning. Project Lead the Way is the grant that Mr. List has talked about before. It's been more than one step to the process. We had received part of this grant previously, and then he applied for $75,000 for the next stage of the grant. This is to open up some more pathways at the high school related to STEM, which we're really excited about. So we were approved for a $40,000 grant, and I do have some more information about it, but really it's helped to get any to launch gateway computer science, biomedical science, or engineering programs within the schools. So this will be the next phase of that. We would have liked to get the $75,000, but it's exciting that we're moving forward, and I'm sure in future presentations, Mr. List will give you more information about what we're going to be able to accomplish with that grant as well. And then I think I know that you already did the budget presentation, so I did give updates at Budget Subcommittee about kind of where we think we are right now and where we're hoping to get. So we're not at that number that you're proposing for the future, but we hopefully will be able to get there when we have more information that is still to come in upcoming weeks.
Our last full-day professional day is tomorrow, so the next school committee meeting, I will update you on the happenings. That's it.
And what is on the agenda for tomorrow for that?
It's a whole bunch of different things. There are, Landmark is coming in and doing training, on language-based support for reading. iReady's coming in and working with elementary school teachers, Haggerty data, instructional planning, continuum training, special ed training, math differentiation training, curriculum mapping. Those are just some of the topics. Nurses are going to be doing, let's see, CPR, emergency response preparedness, medication administration plan, cybersecurity training. Those are just some of the topics.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So one, I just want to acknowledge that this past week we presented on to the select board and received their votes for the middle school and the elementary school SOI for the MSBA. So we'll submit that application by March 21st, and then following that will be the high school application, which is due by April 11th for that. Also, which I've shared with Dr. Kuska and with Mr. Alford, and just bringing this information to you, is there's both the MASS and MASBO have kind of collaborated to put together funding proposals for the state. Specifically, just as we think about it, that's information on percentage increases on circuit breaker or tuition and on transportation reimbursement, along with several other key funding sources or needs across K through 12 education. So, they're encouraging us to just kind of touch base with you all on how we reach out to our legislators and encourage those types of funding proposals. One of the funding proposals is for adjustments in FY25, so circuit breaker adjustments. Their proposal is requesting a 90% of eligible tuition reimbursement, and then for transportation, a 75% eligible transportation request. Again, this is just a proposal from these organizations to our legislators in order to meet kind of our rising needs that we have.
That's great. That would obviously be significant. So I'm in favor. But I'm glad that discussions are happening and the recognition of the impact that those costs are having on budgets statewide, not just ours.
I also just as we think about the circuit breaker and transportation reimbursements are state funding, and as we think about federal funding and how that could be impacted, I just things that are able to kind of protect our districts and meet our needs at the same time are important.
Yeah, I think districts are really getting worried. They're losing not next year, following year federal funding.
I forget which one I read. There was a few in the news today in
There's
Mass.
some uncertainty around just funding that would go to the state that actually helps support our food program right now, so that is definitely a concern. I have to say, I was principal for the day, which I forgot to mention, on Monday at Placentino, and did the breakfast program and the lunch program as the principal, and just the number of students that are taking advantage of that, and it may not even be food insecurity at home. It may just be busy schedules, and they're coming to school hungry. Regardless of the reason, they're coming to school hungry. To be able to have those programs in place has been incredibly impactful in a positive way, according to the principals, and the numbers have increased, and the stigma has gone away, right? So we are very much worried about sort of what will happen next, and we'll just have to kind of watch and prepare for things. So.
Great. So moving on, we have personnel. Is there some job descriptions that we need to approve?
Yes, we put in your folder the cafeteria general worker job description that Lynn had updated, as well as the kitchen manager and the assistant kitchen manager. If you recall, in the last iteration of our contract, we had the manager and assistant manager would no longer be part of the cafeteria worker contract, so they are now under a separate contract, and we did negotiate that there would be an assistant manager position. So Lynn has worked with David to update those 3 job descriptions, and it's in your folder.
So does anyone have any questions about the job descriptions? I'm going to trust, I think, in the administration's putting those together. So I will entertain a motion to approve all 3 of the job descriptions. Do you want, like, for assistant kitchen manager, I'm going from the bottom up, the kitchen manager and the cafeteria general worker.
So moved. Okay, before we can I just say one thing? If we are going to make kind of a change in what the duties, responsibilities, or job descriptions, it's helpful for us to see what that was and then have the new proposed so we can see what the difference is. Because as I'm looking at this, I'm going, yeah, it looks fine, but I don't know what the change is really from what was there before. So if you could forward that to me just so that I could have that.
Excuse me, yes.
Thank
David,
you.
if you could get those from Lynn and Lisa, and we'll send them to you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
It's unanimous. Lisa. All right. Reports from our subcommittees. Communications.
Communications, yep. So do we want to do office hours?
Yes, we
Yes.
do with the-
So I've sent out a couple requests for availability.
Sorry about that. My only thing was, do we want to, I guess, do we want to do them before or after we sort of vote on a budget?
Yeah, so last year we did 2 before and then 1 after, but I'm open to any suggestions of the best time to do that.
Do we have at least 3 people available for next Saturday?
I had proposed Saturday which date's it?
The 22nd?
22nd, and then the 25th and the April 1st at via Zoom at night.
I can re-respond. I think I said April 1st, but I only had one availability in the original, but I could do April 1st at night.
I could probably do the 25th at night.
I can make any of those work.
I can make that Saturday, the 22nd work.
When was that email sent? Many times, Joe.
No, I can send. It's okay. I sent it again this week. I don't remember which day. It's really okay.
I'm looking forward now.
I know. Maybe
email
it
she
didn't
sent
go
like 3
through
times.
like as a.
Can't find it.
I did it through the form.
Do we have any other takers?
I found it.
They're saying here.
No, it's cut off.
I know, but I don't know
It
what
was
they were
Monday,
saying there.
Monday, 125.
Dan, extracted it from your inbox.
With the what?
With the following.
Okay. Vote.
With the following. Meeting. Something.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, we'll
I could
try-
do the 25th with you, Cynthia.
Okay.
So we have 2 people.
So 2 for the 25th, and then Dawn can do the.
Not by herself, though.
I can do
on All right, Hillary and I.
Hillary. And then Frank can do the April 1st. Anyone else for April 1st?
Sure, I'll do April 1st. Potentially could do April 1st.
Okay.
Same thing. I do it. We could do it.
Okay.
We'll be at the top.
I might need to be there.
You don't trust us.
Okay. So I will.
Joe, I think it's a me thing. It's okay.
Well, Joe doesn't say anything.
I'll probably send you an email, Dan, that you could send out
And
with those dates.
the budget presentation's in there, so you can always bring that with you and access it.
Okay.
For discussion.
Oh, strategically, I'll be
write
after the
these,
budget.
who committed to what date and send that out
Yeah.
to you.
I love that.
They will put the budget presentation up on the website, but I think I'd like to wait to email out the budget presentation so we voted on it and have all the
so there's
filled
no
in the details, so it's not,
Okay.
But we
So
put
can I
it,
just do a communicate, say we're going to have office hours and we can discuss
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
concerns with the
absolutely, yeah.
budgets or any other
Whatever else, whatever.
other
concerns, yeah.
topics
Yep.
on these dates. And then you had mentioned a forum. I mean, do we want to talk about having a forum for the schedule
Well,
stuff?
I mean, it
or
sounds like the students are
this-
asking to hear, for us to hear from them. So,
So I guess my question is it, who is best to answer the questions that they're having at this point, I guess?
I don't think it's us.
I think that
Do we need
there,
to-
it's sounding like the students want to be heard by us. So I don't know so much of it, if it's about like questions to answer on specifics. I think they want to feel that they have been heard, regardless of whether it's they agree with it or they don't agree with it. Because I don't think we just didn't give them that opportunity before we voted on it.
Yeah.
So,
I can also see people coming to office hours to discuss it.
Possibly.
But I think, it's my understanding Mr. List is doing the 19th in the evening. And is there anything else?
We had the 10th.
I think he's having meeting with students during the day, I believe.
There are a lot of meetings going on with
Yeah.
council, with the guidance, and he's doing a lot of meetings. But I do think that, we should look to get more communications out from administration on things that, seem to be still confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it's still brand, I mean, Cynthia, the only thing I would say is, I think we need to do forums going forward, and I don't know the version of a forum, what makes sense in terms of the format, to get more voices to be heard. But right now, the task at hand is we have an AB schedule. So they need their questions answered for their schedules. So that's what I'm trying to, my point of view is let's focus on getting them set up for success next year. As we move forward, we have to change how we do
Right,
things.
and I think the point is that they're not feeling that we're setting them up for success.
Yeah.
Because it's not about, and I was trying to say this to Sarah, it's not about, we've been doing a great job communicating, it's just that we haven't given them enough time. And that's what I'm saying. And I think that's what the sentiment of what they're echoing is that it's just not enough time for them to put all of that together to really understand how it's going to work, so they can understand how it's going to impact, what their career in school, whether they're a freshman, sophomore, senior. I think that there are students like, what's her name? Shanaka? Is that Sanaka? Sonika? I'm not saying it right, I'm sorry. Who was saying, this could potentially be 3 different changes in my schedule in the 4 years that I'm here. And I think that students have had 5 years since the pandemic of having to pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. And it's been a lot. I think they've been incredibly resilient. I think that they're looking for us to take a pause so that we can actually, and I'm not saying that we don't implement it, I'm saying that we give more time for our students, our teachers, the administration to get through figuring out all the logistics or building it on the fly. It's like we're literally in an airplane and building the airplane when we're flying.
No,
I don't think that's what I think I'm hearing.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what I'm hearing.
Is your proposal, though, like, I guess what I'm hearing, I'm trying to understand is, are we saying there's going to be a proposal put on the table to pause this AB schedule? Because at this point, the AB schedule is the schedule. So how can we set our students up for success in the condensed timeline best as possible, which is why I will reach out to Mr. List as well. Like, we need to make sure we have those mechanisms.
It's really up to us to decide how we're hearing all this feedback.
Agreed.
And how we want to respond to it. We've created that because we voted on it. So we do have the power to say, maybe we need to take a second look at this.
Well, that's why I think I've asked for, some proposals from administration on different things we can do within the program of studies that I think some of them have been issues for a while anyway.
I mean,
that we can
81
take the
minutes came up
opportunity.
multiple times, and if we keep the schedule or change the schedule, it's
81 minutes is the amount of time whether we did nothing or we did what we did. So, we can't change that. But there are other things such as, allowing students to take 7 out of 8 at some grade level. These are proposals that would have to come from Mr. List. These are not really, for. The
question I would have there, though, is I know some of them could be happening in, I think Dr. George said after the fact, but some of those have to happen now, don't they? If I'm a senior and we're going to say we're going to cut it down to 7 credits to make the workload more manageable, that has to be decided now. Is that?
That is the point.
Like weighted finals, I get, like we can do that after, like we can figure that out after, but if it relates to credits and what I'm taking, wouldn't that have to be decided before I start picking classes?
It'd be good to make a decision of whether we're allowing that so that they can make a decision on what they're scheduling. And so, like, what courses they're taking. Are you allowing them to take 7 classes instead of 8? And that's just a decision that, the sooner we're able to make that decision, the better. But I wouldn't say that that's one of like the major levers for scheduling. That's like a driver right now. It's for students as far as selecting their courses, but not like our ability to actually run the schedule.
Okay.
It opens a week from now, on the 21st, and it's open for 2 weeks, right? So at this point, we have Mr. List presenting, again, to parents and students who want to come to it, on Wednesday, the 19th. It sounds like we might be asking for additional FaceTime with him and making sure people's questions are answered and the ability to meet with them. Is that?
Or do people need to have FaceTime with us as well to understand why we're doing this, or is it? I guess I'm just.
Can we increase?
I would like to help.
Too?
Like
because I'd like so. I think, certainly we have the meeting on the 27th, and they can do public comment again. But as you see, it's a little artificial, right? It could be 2 minutes, it could be 3 minutes, but it's not a back and forth. But we are having the office hours. I mean, I'm there next Saturday, maybe it makes sense to also try and schedule an additional office hour next week, right? We know Mr. List is doing a presentation, but can anybody commit to an hour or two of office hours next week prior to the 22nd?
So that would be
I can look. I don't have all my schedules in front of me.
I can look as well.
I'll also be there on the 19th as a parent of a rising freshman.
That would also allow it to be more of a communication and sit down and talk with people, right?
Right.
Well, that's essentially when you do forums, you know, it is, we're there, all of us are there, and we're there to, like, people ask us questions. That's exactly what it is, which is very different from public comment.
I would say, though, office hours have spotty attendance, but these may be larger, like making clear to those students, like, we're not in a position, students and parents, we're not in a position to answer an individual schedule. So I just want to make sure they don't come and say, here's what I proposed schedule, how will this work? And I think all of us here would be challenged to answer that.
Yeah, and I think the issue is that is what a lot of the questions are, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day,
how does this impact me?
People care about the entirety, but they want to also know how it impacts them directly. And that's only natural. So let's pledge to Sarah that we'll respond to her emails, but we can schedule more office hours and stuff that can be done
Do you want to
outside
do
of a
on the
meeting.
18th, the Tuesday?
The presentation's on the 19th, right?
Yeah.
Does it make sense
there's
for
two
2 or
different
3
things
people
already.
to be there after the presentation, too?
Yeah,
So
it's
there's a
about an hour
presentation.
long. Yeah,
So
the
presentation
presentation was
from-
about an hour.
It's an hour, but then that's in the auditorium, and then afterwards there's an
Right, and
AB
there's
specific
showcase, right?
discussion in here because the showcase, the senior showcase. So there is already going to be kind of a breakout. I'll be there as a
Would it-
parent, but
Would it make sense to do an office hour then?
What time is that?
I would be at the senior
I'll be
showcase
at the
because I have a
senior
senior.
showcase, yeah.
Right, but
So
there's
you-
still 7 of us.
Right, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that I won't.
Sure, we could-
I'm not trying to
What time would
be
that be?
there, but I have a senior, so I'll be there.
I think 6:30 to 7:30, the second part of it, or is it 7:30 to 8:30?
I have it at 5:30 to 6:30.
That's the first. Okay, that's the first part of the
That's the
auditorium. So
program
6:30 to
is
7:30 is in here. We could.
Yeah, 6:45 to 7:45.
I could tentatively do that.
We could
do it too.
We want to make sure it's not a quorum, but
That's true.
or we could, I guess,
Notice it.
notice it. But this is the 19th.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a hot topic that night already, so that might not be a bad idea, right?
Right.
And people will be here. That's the biggest thing with all of
So,
that.
well, we can. Yeah. So let's discuss it. And who? So sit from like 7:30 to 9 or something.
So we do it after the second part?
7:45.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. I could
I would say
definitely do that.
Well, I mean, it just will be when the second part ends, really.
Yeah, but if we're going to post it, we have to post it for a time, so.
What is the point of this? I just want to make sure, like, the majority is going to be in the first part. Second part is a breakout.
No, the first
And
part
so
is
the
freshman.
ninth-
Is the freshman
It's the
program
rising
studies
ninth
night.
grade for program studies tonight
Got it,
and
so
course
new.
selection. 6:45 to 7:30 is the family presentation for students currently in grades 9 through 11.
Got it, okay. So we do, most of the people will be still at 6. I just didn't want people to leave, and then we're doing a forum.
Yeah.
No.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so we'll do a forum. Are we calling it a forum?
Office
Or-
hours.
Office hours.
Office hours.
Well, if there are going to be more than
Yeah.
3 of us, I guess it's sort of more of a.
Just call, so four office hours options. The 19th after the presentation, and then the 22nd at Coffee Haven, and then the 25th and the April 1st via Zoom at night. Okay, great, thank you.
Policy.
Our next meeting is this Tuesday at 4:30 at Central Office, the 18th. And I'm going to have at least 2 policies at our next meeting on the 27th to bring forward, at least 2. But the revisions are not new.
No, budget met on March 6th, March 12th, March 13th, and then you saw the presentation tonight. We will be meeting again before the 27th, but we have not yet set a date.
Okay. Super eval?
Nothing new.
Okay. We need to vote on the last day of this school year because are we confident we're not going to have any more snow days?
April 1st,
There's like some big
1998.
storm happening like this
3 feet
weekend,
of
isn't
snow.
there?
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to, we don't really have a choice here, but to set the last, update the last day of this school year to June 23rd, 2025.
And it's a half day, right?
Yes, the last day would be a half day.
On a Monday.
On a Monday, so
Okay.
sure.
Attendance is going to be stellar. Yes.
Phenomenal.
It was either a half day after Juneteenth on Friday.
I totally get it, yep.
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 know what-
This one's even worse. This
So
is even
is there a
worse.
motion?
Moved by
Yeah, we're
Donna.
like, do we have to?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Nobody's in favor. It's just- It is what it
That
is.
carries. Hillary seconded.
Okay.
Hillary moved it.
Okay, do we want to talk more about the 2025-2026 school year?
I've given up on everybody.
Yes, I think we should,
Okay.
because we need to get this
She
moving
said- she said I
either
should
today
get up,
or on the 27th at the latest, because this
Yep.
is pretty late.
So nobody wanted to look at
No,
the
but can we get
22nd and 20?
half-day PD
Sorry,
things again?
sorry, Cynthia, can you just re-describe your proposal? Because I
So
will be honest,
my-
wasn't able to sort of fully follow it at
So
11:45.
I thought it was gonna, yeah, exactly, because it was super late. I thought it would save us like a day so that we would end before Juneteenth, because right now we're ending the day, no, wait, sorry, we do end the day before June. So it was gonna give us a buffer of a day. I don't know if that's worth it, or a day and a half, but if we moved our December break to the 22nd, 23rd, then went back to school on the 29th, 30th, and then did a half day. Again, it only saves us like a half a day. It wasn't really worth it, but it was like,
Let the
it
record
could
first
save
of
us
all
a
show
half a
that Dawn
day.
is open popcorn, so that's where we're at.
I guess I'm entertaining, so.
I-
It was only going to save us like a half a day. It's not really worth it, but, or a day. I guess it would, it was just one day.
idea.
I don't know if it really does much, because here's the thing, we're supposed to go back on, what is it? We go back on the 2nd, which is a Friday, like, nobody's going to be there, so.
But don't people go, I get that, I agree with, but don't people kind of, some people go away for that entire time
Now
and,
they
you
can go
know.
away from the 20th to the 20th.
Usually between the
No,
So
no,
the thought was that they would go for the 22nd, that we would pull that one back, and then we would get back the 29th, 30th, they would go to school, 29th, 30th, and 31st, but then be off for the 1st and 2nd. So like have a half day on the 31st, or not, who cares? It's
So if
New
we-
Year's Eve.
If we
Do they have to have
are-
that off, what?
If we're concerned they're showing up on January 2nd, I'd say equally, if not potentially worse, if we ask them to come in on the 29th and 30th. Just because with the amount of people that'll do trips for that week, it's more likely to come back by New Year's Day. And it's awkward that it's a Friday, but it's more likely.
But then nobody's going to be here on Friday.
I think one way to save a day might be that we have to go back to doing half PD
day.
days.
Yeah, that's,
I don't-
that would be my,
Clarify, the half PD days don't change the length of the school year, though, because it's still 185 days contractually.
they don't.
so-
No, well,
No, they
they would
No,
change,
not for the teachers, really.
we've done it before where it's been like, you know, we've done it
I
before
know.
and it's.
We've talked about it back
saved
and
us a
forth.
day.
It's just not.
We did do it years before, and if
Yeah.
we did 2 half PD days, that saves us 2 days, right? We could get us,
I think technically we have to do like 3 half days to equal a 1 full day PD. So that's why a lot of districts do like like 1 half day like every single month throughout the whole year.
But
So
does it, now that we have the elementary schools on a more similar timeframe?
yeah,
there
because they
potential
could
to have-
collaborate more
to be
now than
more
they were able
efficient
to,
with
possibly.
a half day? I know before, when you had Miller and Placentino teachers who had their work days on such different hours.
I mean, that's worth looking into. I mean, you're closer, but
But I think you still have to fit the teacher schedule around that, so it's still at 185 days.
Yeah.
So either that or you're putting full days for teachers at the end of the year, I mean, like, it's still the same problem, regardless of their half, or it doesn't, we've tried different scenarios and it hasn't not solved the problem.
But in terms of the learning days, it would be nice, it could be more valuable to be out before it's so hot.
Exactly. That's the whole, that was why I was like, if we could gain a day or 2 days, but.
I'm in favor of moving to at least 2 half PD days.
I think the, well, planning has already happened for PD next year as far as like booking. We have to book like a year out, so some of that's already been, we're contracting with people as we speak.
Well, I mean. All of the days contracted for?
Not all, but I mean, like, in order to get certain training, you have to book it out way ahead.
Do we know how many days are contracted for?
I don't at this point, like, some of it's they've already been putting out for dates, so we don't.
Right, because I verified that.
Those are the dates we've given.
Well, maybe you can tell us which ones have been contracted for, and we can move the other ones to half PD days still.
That makes it really hard to do the work that we're trying to do.
I think,
as we've discussed, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, we're going to be doing curriculum reviews during the day. We're going to be having all-day trainings with outside providers.
So I'll bring it up one more time, and I know it's not favorable. If we're asking everyone to come back on the 2nd right now, if we move the January 16th PD day to the 2nd, understanding teachers would need to come in on the 2nd, but it limits, like, if we're asking everyone to come in right now, we're only asking teachers if we do a PD day.
Ooh, that's just, no.
Yeah, but if the alternative.
But right now, it's
is
a
low
school day,
attendance with
Cynthia,
kids,
like,
so
it's
not much instruction going on.
It's there.
Then I think my proposal is better then.
Okay.
Because then we
I'm not saying
will get a
take a day
full
off and
week,
make
and then
it
the
a
people
PD
come
day. It's
back
not
to
a day
school, and then
off.
they have those 2 days and a whole long weekend again.
I guess my other question.
And then you
would
save a
be,
day.
What,
And then we get out on the 17th instead. It gives
do
us a
you
buffer.
think that's the 22nd and 23rd are going to be like the districts surrounding us where our teachers might be living? Do you
Do
think?
you think they'll be out? I don't.
They will
I wouldn't
be.
know that. I didn't actually check that.
Like,
Do we
do you
think
think
that?
other districts will be?
I think they
would be
will.
considering the 23rd and 22nd.
I think the issue is actually if we have school on the 29th, 30th, and 31st, but every district that I'm aware would be closed. So that means now parents would have to find
Yeah, that's what
daycare
I'm-
for their children that isn't
That's what she was
available.
saying.
That's what I'm getting at.
I'm sorry.
That is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that is a big concern.
Like, I don't think we want
And
to
also
very.
it's New Year's
so
Eve.
No, I get it. It's more of
Attendance is
a-
going to be horrible, especially for people that have already booked trips because it's so expensive traveling the Christmas week that they end up booking probably already now. And some people have weddings, and I mean, that's why, like last year, I had said if you're going to really alter the schedule, you really need to think it a full year ahead because the closer you get to this timeline, it just, people have already.
Well, to be fair, even 2 years, because there are trips now planned for the spring and February breaks.
Yeah, the school trips. Is that true?
Yeah, but the other thing is they have
Yeah.
they have vacation camps for kids. I mean, not everybody is off for the break. Like, some people have to work throughout that, so they just do vacation camps. I'm just saying, like most other people.
I think that's why I tried to think of last year, when I did want to support Eid, but I also had offered to try to put a PD day on that day so that we could still have it off. You know, we have limitations based on the number of holidays that have been built in.
Ashley doesn't have.
I'm not ready to vote for getting out on June 18th, which with just one snow day would push it to the 22nd. So is it, do we want?
We're getting out the 23rd this year.
Right, which is really late. I mean,
Yeah.
imagine what attendance will be like on that day.
Do we solve it well as well?
We did not.
Oh, okay. I was
I know.
Tell me if I gave
You missed
extra time.
really
I
nothing.
have people think about it and we'd be ready to vote on the 27th.
I mean, 2 weeks,
trying to
it's already
book their
late, but
tickets
2
now,
weeks,
you
I
know,
think we
really.
should think about it a little more.
That's fine. But everyone come ready to vote one way or the other on the 27th.
I'll be soon.
You resume.
Trying to look at Hopkinton's calendar, because they have the same holidays we have, but they,
have one less contractual day, so it's also.
Do they have half PD days?
Oh, they giving off the second?
they have the second.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And
They have the second off.
they decided already? Okay, hold on, Cynthia.
Yeah, most of the time we've decided this in February, so.
I think it's, I understand that the second coming back is problematic, but I don't see any other scenario based on the number of holidays that are built in. But something has to give here, and that's the only give we could come up with.
What do we think attendance will be worse than? I know it's a bit of a gamble right now. The 2nd or the 22nd of June? Right, because if we think about the 2nd's going to be so bad,
I think the 22nd.
then take that off.
22nd will be worse.
Will be worse.
So
Okay.
they're doing
But that's
the
but the
24th.
22nd isn't a certainty.
It'd be the 23rd.
And they're taking the first and second.
Well, exactly. I mean, 22nd would be a certainty if we took January 2nd off and we made a day off.
Right now we're ending on the 18th. It's just one day, one snow day, and you're at the 23rd.
I mean, ideally, ending before Juneteenth is really the best viable option we can come up with.
What I guess I'm saying, Dan, is if
They
we're
have the
giving
same
June,
last day of school.
or January 2nd off, the day needs to push out.
Oh, well, then you, right, then you go to the 22nd. Yeah.
That's what I was asking, like, if we think January 2nd is going to be so bad,
For next year.
is 22nd going to be worse? And the answer seemed to be
Last day of
yes.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Make
I
up
would
some
just
days, same as
advocate
ours.
for, providing closure on the calendars as soon as is possible on that, just as far as thinking about, the teachers and starting to schedule out and families as well, as far as vacations and different things that they're trying to put into place. Also, if we're kind of continuing to have that back and forth on like the 2nd or the June or whatever, we can connect with teachers too, just to kind of get a sense of like what.
If you could do that for March 27th, just because.
I just don't.
Oh.
I don't know that we're going to get good consensus, honestly. I mean, like, I hear you.
Hopkinton has the second off, just so you know.
That's because they have less contractual days. I mean,
And they get
Same
out
day
the
that we
18th.
do, but they're.
Same day.
Because they have less contractual days.
No, I know. I'm just saying that they're also
have
taking the
half-day
second off. It just-
PDs. They do early release PDs.
I would
In for a
second what
penny for
David's saying. We're
pounds.
getting a lot of feedback from teachers. They just need to know the calendar, so.
So they don't really, we're going to get a trade-off, so we just need to decide so that they can plan.
Yeah.
They just want to
If we
know.
had to decide tonight, I'd still like to convert to half PD days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would do.
I know the idea was floated that we potentially remove some non-federal holidays. Is that off the table?
I would say
For now it is,
would
for
say
sure.
it is.
Joe, which one?
You're far
Now you
into it.
speak and you throw the grenade.
Wow.
That is not something that's a pretty major.
I think the other thing is, one of the things that worked really well this year is giving our teachers, we did a half day on the first day of school, so that teachers had all of their mandatory trainings done that day. I would have to forego that half day if we're going to go back to half day, because we're trying to minimize disruption to time on learning. So there's a lot of other things that were factored in when we went back to full days, and it's been much more, the PD's been better, the teachers getting their trainings done that opening day has been better, and there's been less disruption for parents. So, and I don't think we gain, if anything, you're gaining like one day by going back to half days, and the disruption is actually probably.
Well, one day would be huge because we then either give the second off or we end on the 17th and have that extra buffer day. So I mean, one day is pretty significant. Yeah.
I mean, I'm.
Can maybe let's do the vote on the 27th, and maybe if you could put together an option for splitting up PD into two half days, and let's see what that looks like. Does that make sense? Or do people just want to vote on it now? I don't.
Can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Has there been any discussion around moving one of the PD days to before school starts?
Yeah.
We
was.
did that a few years ago, and teachers hated it.
Okay.
So we took the PD survey feedback, and they really said they were so anxious about trying to prepare for students that they were very unfocused that day, so that's why we moved it to mid-September.
So I guess the question would be, though, would they rather have a PD day before school starts or January 2nd off?
What?
But then that would put us into the 22nd of August anyhow. Do you know what I mean? Like, that would, That was the one we talked about going back to the week before, so I think if we told them Friday, the 22nd.
That's right, we did float that, putting it.
No, we did not float that.
I floated it. I floated it, right?
I really wanted to advocate for the different groups, though, because if you go back to half-days, the different groups cannot meet across the schools, because they have different
We're talking about
times.
one day, so there will be at least three other full PD days. So we're just talking about splitting one of them
And
up.
would it be different now that we have Placentino and Miller on the same schedule?
No, because we're meeting K through 12 in a lot of different groups
So
together.
I have to go back and look at how, because when we had the half-day PDs, we actually had 181 days for students to make up the time, so it actually was the same length of the year. That's what I'm trying to, I'd have to look back to a couple of years ago when we had that scenario.
Sounds like we should, yeah, we can all look back at those.
Let's look back on the schedules and come ready to go.
Let's put an actual vote on for the 27th.
I will put an actual vote on, and I will put in bold and capitals.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I bet we land on this one.
Probably. Okay, now we're getting to new business.
17th.
Title IX updates.
So I put two items in your, the school committee folder, just for your information. Based on the current government, the federal regulations, it has been voted that the president has implemented back to 2020 Title IX regulations. So it's law at this point, so we have to now revert back and change our handbooks to reflect that. So Jess Beatty had reached out to our legal counsel, Katie Minolt, and so in there is the Title IX student handbook language. And this is more just for you to be aware, because legality trumps, bad word choice, but the legal requirements enforces that we do have to change the language regardless of the fact that, usually we vote on the handbooks at a different time of the year. So this is really about making sure the law is reflected in our student handbooks. And then we will end up bringing Cynthia back to policy ACAB so that we can reflect the changes in policy as well at our next policy meeting. But I wanted you to see that this is going to have to change, and then we'll end up having to send out to parents to let them know that this is now the policy and the grievance process and complaint process that we do have to follow.
Can we get a red line, or is there a red line to this? To see the changes?
I don't think it's red line because it's completely reverted back.
Oh.
I'd have to give you the old one, and that's in the handbook. And if you
Our
want me to.
policy is supposed to just say that we follow what the law is, essentially, and then that's the language.
I'm not suggesting we.
No, I'm just
change it.
telling you, I
Just
don't,
do it.
yeah, there was a little, I'll admit, some dragging of the feet in changing it. Because
Yeah,
we're
I
going to
think
change
it's-
it back again, and then now we're changing it again. So that's why it just reflects now in the handbook that it automatically changes into whatever the whims of the current administration.
Okay. So moving on to discussing the creation of a leveling or subcommittee of the Holliston School Committee.
I did send you an email just because I didn't know if you wanted me to at least kind of address some of the, there does seem to be some confusion out there. I didn't know if you wanted me to project and sort of be able to walk through kind of what is already in place for next year. Would that be helpful?
Yes.
I think, though, just so we're clear, my sort of thought here, and I thought we would sort of discuss was more of a longer-term a committee for at least a year to look at not next year, but sort of the future state of it. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I thought it'd be helpful for people to hear kind of where we are at the moment, and then talking about what your plans are for the committee. So let me just share this. Why is it not there? And try again. It didn't share that time. I don't know why it's not sharing. When you see I'm sharing it, and it's going blank. I don't know why mine's blank. Do you want to see if you can share it?
Can you full screen?
I don't know why it's, I mean, it was working earlier, so I don't know why it's not now.
I think you're the only one on now. Can you make
That's the
that?
one that's on.
Yeah.
So that's the one that's on, yeah.
Can you make that a co-host?
It's screen sharing, that's not the issue. You can see it here. Can somebody else log on to it and then?
You're asking me to pull it up from there?
Yeah, if you can, or from your computer.
It's not, yeah, if you can go in from the school committee. There we go. There we go. All right, thank you. I don't know why it was doing that, but, okay. So it's still going to be hard for you to see, but let me just see if I can go back. It's still going to be hard, but.
It looks like a completely different language. It's like
So
translated.
the way this was designed was to try to kind of show where we are currently and what's already happened. One of the things we had talked about at the last presentation when Karen Manning was here was the fact that the teachers have already done work from last year to this year to try to address, because no matter what direction we go, adding levels, taking levels away, the model is still, if we're going to do Algebra 1 in grade 8, there's still, for some students, they still have to do 4 years of math in 3 years. There's no other way around it, whether it's levels or not. So if you look at the blue on the left side, which is our current grade 6 class, the blue is all of the current grade 6 standards. And then as I slide down here, you can see the teachers have added some of the grade 7, which is the pale yellow on the left. You can see that's 7 RPA1. Those are showing you the standards that they've already taken from 7th grade to move down to 6th grade to try to make some of these adjustments. So that's why I wanted to show you here. So it's not a ton of standards, but again, it's taking to get more into the content. And then if you look at the second column, which is our current Math 7, which is the yellow. So if you look, they've also tried to move some of the grade 8 standards, which is the light green. So that's why she color-coded to show you that this is the work we talked about that happened last summer. The teachers have really made a concerted effort to shift some of this. And they tried to look at standards that more just, if it was a grade 7 standard and then the grade 8 was part of the same standard, but more advanced. That's why they made some of these shifts already.
I'm sorry, where are the grade 8 standards in grade 7?
So the green, so that's, the yellow is grade 7, this column here.
Green.
And then anything that's green in the yellow column.
It's kind of like,
8EE, 8.6, and then 8GC9, which is a geometry, 8GA5. So you can see those are the ones that they've moved down because it made sense to place them there. And then going into the third column, which is our current Math 8 course, similarly, they've looked at anything they could shift there. But the Math 8 standards is what our current grade 8 students are getting, either all Math 8 or they're getting a hybrid of some Math 8 and then Algebra 1 standards. So this Math 8 in the middle, that would stay the same for most students next year that are not going to be in advanced. And then if you look to the right of that one.
Anything that you're proposing changing in the Math 8 for next year from this year?
Math 8 will be consistent, and they'll do all Math 8 standards for the majority of students that aren't in the advanced class.
Okay, so that's saying the same as
Yes,
this year?
yes.
Are we offering 8 advanced and Algebra 1 next year? Is that?
So if you look at current 24-25,
Yeah.
which is what we call algebra in grade 8, that's not going to exist
Oh, to move to
anymore,
algebra.
because now we're doing
Okay.
the full algebra.
Got it.
So if you look at the right column with the purple, the current grade 8 advanced are getting the purple standards. The yellow standards are the ones that they weren't getting in this current year, but they will get next year. So you'll see there's quite a few, though.
There's a lot. And I know not everyone's equal. But
It's a lot, and that's why in 9th grade, they're spreading it out over really 2 years of math. It is just a lot. But the teachers will be working as hard as they can to get that in. Regardless of how many levels you have in 7th or 8th, you're still going to have students that are going to be missing some standards, whether it's in 7th grade or 8th grade. And that's why these students in Algebra 1, when they get the full Algebra 1 in 25-26, will be able to go into geometry in grade 9, and then Algebra 2 in grade 10, and then pre-calc or calc in 11, or some of them might take it in grade 12 for calculus.
Are there any 8th graders that will be, or 7th graders now that will be going into 8th grade Algebra 1 next year? Or are there any standards that they will be missing?
So they will have not gotten the Math 8 standards, so that's why we proposed the Math Lab, so they'll end up taking, they'll have another offering during the day that they will have some extra help. Actually, extra help, extra work to do, because the same thing would happen if you have 2 levels in grade 7. Those students, so right now, if a current 6th grader were going into 7th and they were going into advanced, they would not have had any of the grade 7 standards. So no matter what levels you have, you're still condensing, for some students, you're still condensing 4 years of math in 3, so that we still have to supplement either in 7 or 8, regardless of which way you go.
Can you just go over the Math Lab again?
Sure. Yes, so that's why the math tutor position is really important, that we would be offering, and I'll blank it out at what time of the day she would be doing it.
Rams block.
The Rams block.
Sorry, yes, during the Rams block, they're going to have a math lab offering, and they'd have to vary the time of day, the days of the week that students would get it. And so we'd be using a lot of the IXL, and that's what, under Carla's direction, she would work with the math tutor so that students would be set up, so they'd have it all set up with all the Math 8 standards. They would test in, and they would supplement to find out which ones they're missing, or, I mean, some kids will just naturally have been able to learn them and move on their own. But the IXL program is designed to supplement and also make sure that the kids are moving as fast as they can through those standards.
How does Delta Math fit in?
Delta Math, you want?
It's more for like repetition and gaining the facts, but we're really trying to utilize more IXL and iReady because that's what so IXL because that's in middle school. We're relying on that more because you can give specific assignments based on standards that students are struggling with. And also IXL adjusts to the student. So if they're struggling with a certain concept, it's going to give them work on that concept. If they've already mastered something, it's not going to give them work on that.
But does IXL teach them, or, I mean, it's more of an assessment, as I can tell.
No, so IXL is Tier 1 and Tier 2. That's why we wanted to get it. Tier 1 is the assessment part. Tier 2 is helping students differentiate it at their level. So there's like a...
But then it just gives them more problems to do at a level that they're still trying to master?
Well, it helps
correct,
them to learn.
on standards, correct.
Yeah.
And it helps them to
I
learn.
guess I'm
yep.
just worried that it's more... The kids are just trying to figure out the problem, but I don't know, are they learning the concept?
Oh, absolutely. They're getting support from teachers at the same time. But if Dr. Kuska's struggling on one concept and I'm struggling on a different concept, IXL is giving her work on hers and me work on my standard that I'm struggling with.
Until they master it.
Correct.
So it's a differentiated math
Correct.
lab.
Yeah, I just want to...
With direct instruction, right? That's what we're trying to understand. Is it going to be direct
Yeah,
instruction?
teachers would, yes.
It gives them feedback when they get it wrong, but it's not like a specific lesson on, okay, so now that you've gotten it wrong, like here's what you got wrong, here's what you need to do next time, but it doesn't then do a specific lesson. So that's where that direct instruction.
So the
would have
math
to pair.
tutor that would be giving direct instruction too, along with that, just as a classroom teacher.
But if you had 10 kids in there,
Right.
and then you see that one continues to hit on those same standards and can't master them, that's when the Tier 3 instruction might have to go.
This might be my own incompetency, but when working with my daughter's IXL, I haven't been able to figure out how to go back to problems that she already did and review them. I don't know if that's just me or that's not possible.
I don't know the program well enough, but I'm thinking it's because they would have mastered those concepts.
No, she got them wrong.
Okay.
It gives them new ones on the same standard.
Right, but I'm trying to say if I'm trying to help her and go back and look at what she did, understand what she did wrong, it would be nice to be able to go back and
And I think that's where the tutor and also Carla would be monitoring the reports that they're getting to determine whether they need more support.
How is Delta Math different?
Did you get that part? I don't know. I think
Sorry, that's how Delta Math is different.
Delta Math, we are not using as much because IXL and iReady fit those needs.
I think it is being used.
Not as much, because we're relying on iReady and IXL. Yes, it's being used, but not as much as we were before, because it's meeting the bulk of those needs. That Delta Math did.
Do we have any feedback from students or the math department on it?
On Delta Math?
Yeah.
We can.
I can get some. I know that Mr. McLeod talked to him about it, but yeah, I can get some feedback.
I think whether, depending on what you decide, next year, if you put together a leveling subcommittee, I would hope that it wouldn't start till the fall, just because there's so many things happening that I don't know that you get much accomplished this spring. But if you go that direction, and these are some of the conversations we want to bring to those discussions, and I think regardless, if you end up implementing 2 levels in grade 7, the same thing's going to happen. We still want to have math lab in grade 7 then, because they would have not gotten the math if they're going right from 6th to 7th, and the advanced in grade 7 becomes the math 8 standards, and they would have missed the grade 7, so we still have to double up somewhere for students regardless of the levels.
So that kind of was curious to me in your email, just asking to delay it till the fall. Only because that at least my thinking, and obviously this would be the committee sort of put the charge into the subcommittee, would not be to make any changes, but why would we wait to start the work looking for the following year?
I was just thinking of the bandwidth of the administrators, who I think are really critical to this work.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm worried about the bandwidth of them with all the other changes that are happening.
Are
because
you
the work's
looking for it to
happening.
be like a traditional subcommittee, or should it be a committee of the administration and we already had a math study group, and then school committee members could sit on it, because it makes it a little bit more challenging.
School committee members did not sit on either of them.
No, I'm saying that we could sit on it, is what I'm saying, instead of it being a subcommittee of the school committee, because then we're operating more on their time.
Well, I think it would be, I agree with you that the administrators
They have the
should
area of
lead it,
expertise and it's
should lead it.
operational.
But my idea anyway would be that it would be, teachers, some administrators, a couple school committee members, but for the school committee really to be there more to observe and sort of report.
That's what I'm saying, but it's not
And then
like
some
a
and then
subcommittee
some
of the school
community
committee.
members.
Right, that's fine, but I don't know if that's really
Well, I'm thinking of a
yeah.
subcommittee just like with the tuition-free full-day kindergarten and what we did with the start times subcommittee.
Well, that's a true subcommittee then.
Right.
With 3 members on it.
No, it doesn't need to
Typically,
be.
it's 3 members on it, but.
It doesn't need to be. And we wouldn't.
Do we have 3 members?
But then we also have to post it the same way and all that stuff
Correct.
too.
It would have to be a public. It would follow the OML and everything.
Okay.
But
I'm just saying it can sometimes limit the flexibility. That's all.
there are definitely some
So that's why I was
drawbacks.
suggesting that a couple of members be on it and serve on it and still do all the same things. You can still take minutes and all that, but it's within the purview of the superintendents. Just like we had the task force on student stress or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's a response team or,
I think the difference is who sort of the committee kind of ultimately reports to.
Do we have 3 members that are interested in being on it?
I'd be okay with 2, but
I'd like to be on it.
I could do it.
I think as we think about a subcommittee, though, being Cynthia and Joe, feel free to chime in, but it was highly disorganized. We took, and again, start times and math leveling and de-leveling, different conversation, but as you bring in different points of view that have very specific viewpoints at times, you're not going to get consensus, and again, you never start with consensus. Typically, you got to get to consensus. I urge, as we think about having administration, teachers, community, school committee on a subcommittee, there also be an external point of view that can help bring that to the table, because you're going to bring a bunch of points of view, and I am for the leadership be administration, but having an external point of view to bring a different perspective.
External point of view.
Someone who's not directly involved in it.
So I was thinking that we would suggest like some I think
Like
Kathy
Kathy.
had volunteered
Yeah.
to be.
And she
So-
might be able to do it during the, when it's
Right.
during the day, because she's not tutoring when students are at school.
Sure. So is that what, do you mean something like that? Because I would not be in favor of bringing in anybody, like a moderator and paying them or.
No,
I'm just trying to understand.
It's more chaotic. I would rather it be part of the administration, the superintendent, and certainly having school committee members serving on it, and be active participants.
What I would say, so is
members.
Kathy, remind me, Kathy a parent?
She is a former school committee member. She was a 3-term school committee member.
I guess the concern I have.
Her kids have graduated.
How do we ensure that it doesn't start with and end up? Because to be honest, I think the feedback was like, how do we ensure there's organization and goals? And
well, I think one of the issues that with the start times was, again, and this seems to be a theme that of critique, and we're going to have to address it, but there was a fairly short time frame to make decisions with that. One of the reasons why I think starting it earlier is better is that you get organized and you set up sort of a trajectory and sort of where you want to go, and you put in place. I think that in your email you suggested 2 people, and I think that those make a lot of sense. My only suggestion, and those were Ron Taylor and Karen Manning. My only other suggestion would be maybe I want you to talk with him, but Jerry L. Just because one of the as we look at all this, one of the big things we're talking about is equity.
And I feel like we talk about equity a lot. We stand by the equity audit, but I think having him more in the conversation will bring a different perspective.
Right.
So I would definitely stand by that.
He would balance out one of the main focuses, right?
And so then we would seek out, some number of teachers, and then a couple community members who have
Right, but we
preferably.
still want it to get like.
No. I'd like to keep it to 12.
And can I just, some of the things that I've done, like when I do wellness council or whatever, I always say, please let me know if you're interested, and let me know kind of why you're interested. It would be wonderful if you could get representation from both sides of the coin.
Yes,
some people that may not want to change too far, and people that do want change. Because what happens sometimes is we get people that already have a mindset made up, and then we don't get. You really need pros and cons of both sides.
Sure.
And it's a debate. It really becomes a debate.
And then we heard from Ron already, so we kind of know that that he at least has seen the benefits of de-leveling. I don't know where Ms. Manning stands, but I think that, and nor am I looking to what's the word, stack the deck, if you will, in one way or the other. But so I agree.
Yeah, I think we have, community members who feel very passionately about it in one certain way. But I think that there's that other piece that I think that they may be missing, which is one of the reasons why we're looking at that was because of the equity piece of it. And we need to make sure that we follow through with that, whatever we decide, right? So if we have to think creatively about how we make sure that we don't have those choke points and still have levels, if that's what we decide to do, we just have to make sure and be mindful that we're not stacking classes in certain ways, but that may be an unavoidable thing, which is why we have to be really thoughtful about how we decide to move forward.
One of the things that's great about Kathy, obviously, is her experience in being not only on the school committee, but tutoring tons of our students, so knowing, kind of what it is. I'm certainly reaching out to Amanda and Bigelow, and
right.
I think
but those are folks that feel very passionately about math. So we just have to, I'm just saying,
I think we have to,
both
when we
sides.
consider teachers, I'd like to consider teachers both at the middle school and the high school.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And frankly, if we're going to be looking at, if we end up having to level, this is scaffolding that's going to happen at the elementary level too. So I think it should be spanning, it's the entire K through 12 math program. So, and with clear goals, like what is the goal? If we're trying to make sure that the most students have access to get to calculus by the time they finish high school here, and that's our goal, then let's set that as the goal and figure out what those pathways will end up being.
That students have a clear pathway to getting to calculus, and that we're setting the structures and the scaffold, the pathways to moving between. So if a student is a little bit delayed in getting the material,
there's multiple entry points.
To me, that's where the
I agree,
really kicks in. Is ensuring that we have the ability to provide students with the support to allow them to accelerate if they just are later, in accelerating and getting it right. Sometimes, especially with things like math, it just kind of clicks one day, right? And you start going. But if you're 2 years in and you've already kind of gone into the
right. Well, I will never get geometry.
Right.
The ship is sailing for me.
Statement about bringing something else into the space. I think that
I think regardless of what the makeup of that committee is, everybody's going to be bringing their own biases or their own community identities, whether they're a school committee member, whether they're a parent, whether they're a teacher, whether they're an administrator, and somebody who's able to kind of acknowledge that and sort through that so that we can have open and collaborative conversations.
Yeah.
You and I, having been with Joe and with Cynthia on the other committee, people brought in those biases, and we spent a ton of time even just trying to break down those in our conversation, and that's took up a solid chunk of our time.
Most of it.
You know, so you know, it's no secret that like I was the principal of the building when we made the move away from 7th grade accelerated, and the reasons for that. I am not wanting to put myself on that committee in any way, but I've
It seems like he's offering.
So you know, I would just say that, you know, in doing that and making that move, I also know and acknowledge it was not necessarily a popular thing. So if I was completely focused on self-preservation, that would, you know, not have been the direction I would have gone in. That being said, whatever group is put together with this is to look deeply on, you know, our actual data with our kids and the potential outcomes and consequences of any decision that's made.
Here's what
Can I make one suggestion?
And focus on our mission and values.
Still, that's what I was going to say. I feel like this is less to me about calculus, but what is it that we hope for our students' futures beyond high school, right? Because I personally, it was trig when I went to school, and some districts still do trig. So I took trigonometry, I was an advanced student, and then went into college and took calculus for math majors. I decided I had to work too hard for my B+ in college, so I gave up calculus. Oh, I finished calculus, but I didn't go any further. But to this day, I don't use calculus, you know, or trig, right? In my algebraic thinking, I did some when I taught middle school math, 8th grade pre-algebra. That being said, I think it's more about why do we want them to get to calculus? What doors might it open? And I think that's a better story than calculus for its own sake is not really the outcome. Do you know what I mean?
So,
And maybe part of the innovation pathway is that David is trying to move forward with.
I think part of it is meeting each kid where they're at and getting them as far as we can.
Exactly.
Right?
And but why?
and as far as they want to, too, not just what we can, but also like if,
Yeah.
you know, if they want to, you know, accelerate, but maybe they don't, their family doesn't have the means to put them in Kumon or Russian math. How do we
Right,
help
making sure
sort
they
of
don't have to
support?
leave this district in
Right.
some way, whether it's expensive tutoring that some families can afford and others cannot, or leave this
Or-
district in order to be offered challenging math.
Yeah, and I think that's my point. So what is it that the children would aspire to beyond high school that would really make it important that they get there?
So here's the thought. So I think that, you know, we do want a little bit of structure around this. I mean, I would be willing to sort of vote to create the shell tonight, but that might not be necessary, at least insofar as my thought would be, I don't know if you've had conversations with Karen yet about this, but if Hillary and Karen maybe could find time to get together to discuss sort of the framework, the mission statement, and then we can bring that back, you know, on the 27th and vote on the creation of the committee with a sort of a membership sort of suggestion to, not necessarily names, but at least positions. And in the meantime, if there are teachers and staff who are interested in serving on it, or members of the community, to, you know, send an email to, who wants to get the emails?
I think we need to send an email out to the community about it, and then, I mean, because if you're not listening tonight, you won't know anything about this, right?
Yeah, I think we need to gain some.
Which I think would have to come after the 27th, so
Right.
maybe wouldn't Hillary and Karen talk
Okay.
for more of an idea?
Sure,
and
Yeah,
then
I'd like
prepare to-
Ron, if we could too, because I think, you know, his perspective as a former math teacher has been very helpful in our conversations. So can you let me speak to, I have not talked directly to Ron. Karen is aware that I was recommending her. And I would like to speak with Jerry
Okay.
just to let him know that that might be an asset.
Okay, yeah. Sorry to put you on the spot there, but, and then, so then we'll have more of a concrete recommendation. Because I do think, you know, the mission statement where we're looking to get to, to sort of empower the committee and sort of define the work is important. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
High school
Must be
SOI.
flying. Okay.
High school, SOI.
So I popped in your folder the language, and the last time I did a presentation on the SOI was in 2023, because we had people that had seen those presentations so frequently that we didn't feel a need to do so last year. But for people that were not here when we made that vote, I wanted to share that so you had that, and I apologize that you just got that today, because it just occurred to me that some people would not have seen that
Do
before.
you need us to vote on it tonight? 'Cause
So I need to get it on the agenda for select board very soon. So
I've already heard it before, so.
I'm happy to answer questions, but also it would just be voting on the language for the thing.
Is there a change in the language at all?
Not the language.
Well, I
mean, like the
did take
voted-
priority 4 out, because priority 4
Okay.
in last year's SOI had to do with, at that point, we were seeing that bubble going up, and
Yeah.
and now that our enrollment has dropped more significantly in the lower grades, I can't really use that as a need any longer.
That's a big blow.
The high school for,
Yeah, just if we. Yeah.
But just so you know, with the select board now meeting every other week, and us needing to get on their agenda for the 24th, because I think it's the next, before we had to submit it on the 11th.
Correct. So I did ask Lisa to reach out today to see which one we can get on. I said you have to do it no later than April 7th, and that's cutting it close. So whichever day.
Kathleen was able to respond.
Oh, okay.
With the 24th.
24th, thank you. Okay, so we're on for the 24th.
So you need to change the language in there, though, because it says February 8th, 2024. Already?
I'm sorry, did I not take it out?
No.
February 8th?
It says on February 8th,
Oh,
2024.
no, that's not the actual language. It's the italicized, that is the language we
Okay,
need to
'cause
read.
I was like, why?
And then
That's why I wanted us
you'll
to
update
read.
the rest of the language, right?
I will, but
It's just the resolved, having convened and open.
I know, but I tried to fix the dates for you, so I
Okay.
apologize for that if I didn't. I hope I put the right one in there, but.
Well, you have, at the top, it says March 13th, but then you start,
Okay.
the first sentence says on February 8th.
Oh, yes, sorry.
And it
but-
should say
yeah, so I
on
just, I'll
March
fix that.
13th,
But I just wanted you to
Set a
read
school
the
meeting.
resolve part, yes.
Yeah.
And then I can update the rest of it. Thank you.
Is everyone ready? Okay. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 13th, 2025, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the school committee of the town of Holliston, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated April 14th,
April 11th, I think.
April 11th,
Sorry.
2025, for Holliston High School located at 370 Hollis Street, Holliston, Massachusetts, 01746, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority area number 1, building jeopardizing student health, poor health, and learning environment. Priority area number 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of a school facility system, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation, decrease energy-related costs in a school facility. Priority area number 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. And hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the town of Holliston to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. So that is the motion. Do we have someone to?
Moved by Cynthia?
You?
second by Dawn.
Let's just do a roll call. Frank?
Wow, yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And I, Dan, am a yes. So that carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Hopefully more luck in this one.
And did we update that we went in front of the select board on Monday for the SOI? Oh,
Dr.
sorry.
Jordan did it
Dr.
during his
Jordan,
comments, yes. And so they voted
Yes, he
and
did.
supported
Sorry.
our applications for the roofs.
No, I remember.
Okay.
He started.
Okay.
I wasn't here. Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of our public meeting, and Cynthia, it is 10 o'clock on the dot. So that was,
It just takes time to get.
we did it. However, we are going to go into executive session.
I didn't do anything for you.
We don't need executive session?
We do need executive session. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn from open session into executive session, from which we will not return, though.
Nope.
For the purposes of discussing strategy with respect
Move
to
by Cynthia.
collective bargaining or litigating if an open
think I have
meeting
to read the whole
may
thing.
have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, and this is for the HFTH Holliston Schedule Committee.
Yes, moved by Cynthia.
Okay. Frank?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
Dan, yes. Thank you very much. We are now adjourned, and have a good night.